This podcast is brought to you on Roku and Fire TV by PodNation Podcast TV. Find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever podcasts are broadcast. Download our app and never miss a show with video on demand as well as exclusive content found only on PodNation TV. Live from Hong Kong, it's MIFV episode 82, Daniel DiManna versus Super Inframan. Hello, Kaiju Lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, Monster Island's film curator, Nate Marchand. I almost said media master. I don't have that job anymore. Gosh darn it. Don't remind me, Jimmy, but I'm glad that you got that new mic going there. Hopefully you don't sound like a garbled robot anymore. And everyone will hear your dulcet tones or whatever you're saying. You know, you think you got a great radio voice. You know, well, we'll leave that to the listeners to decide. But yes, today is kind of interesting because we are not on Monster Island. We're not at the KIJU studios. We are coming to you live from the MIFV mobile studio on Jimmy's Mech, Uber Mogura. You don't need to keep reminding us that it's not your favorite, okay? We weren't able to get Mechanicon Mark II fixed up after our fight with not Goldar a few months ago, okay? Your favorite mech is still kind of half melted. Anyway, we're not here just by ourselves. No, I have actually one of my favorite guests here with me today. It is the author, creator of the Godzilla Novelization Project, the host of the Patreon-exclusive Monster Musings podcast, and MIFV MAX member, Pollyanny Danny DiManna.
Insert applause here. I will, pause for effect. I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm here. Hi there. What's up? Pollyanny Danny here.
Pollyanny Danny, and here I was scrambling to see if I still had the applause sound effect on this soundboard here.
Oh,
and
no, I don't.
I'll have to remember that for next time you come.
I don't actually deserve or need the applause. That's fine. Also, before we move on, can you quickly and efficiently define for the listeners what Pollyanny means so that, you know, nobody gets the wrong idea?
It comes from Pollyanna, you know, which is a nickname that you give to people who are annoyingly positive.
Wow. You know what? Never mind.
No, positive to the point of delusion, I think is kind of the idea.
I like that one. It's a lot more insulting. Thank you. I'll take it. But yes, I'm here. I'm back. It's been not too horribly long since I've been on the show.
Let's see. I mean, we've done a couple of live streams in the last few months, but I'm trying to think. Where was the last actual episode? I know you came for Mothra versus Godzilla because you got to do my job for a little while. After that,
I got to do your job. I got to hang out and talk a little bit about Zillafoot.
Oh yeah, that's right, Zillafoot.
Yes,
Zillafoot. Because you've been in one kaiju movie, which is more than me.
This is true, and don't you forget it. I'm kidding. Got to talk a little bit about Dino Saucers.
Also true.
Which was really cool.
Yeah.
So I've been around. I've been back here. Now this is the first time I've recorded the show not on Monster Island, which is kind of interesting. It's also the first time I've been on an extended trip inside of a mech, which is pretty cool. Although I will say that my trip to get here was a touch unorthodox.
Oh, really? You're always getting to your destinations in unorthodox ways.
Yeah, I know. It actually, this one's not as weird as it has been in the past, because in the past...
what was that, Jimmy? Oh, the Pteranodon bot. He's still worried about that.
Well, I'm glad you're actually, around this time, Jimmy. I know that was outside of your control, but I actually did bring the Pteranodon bot with me. I want you to look at it because if you'll remember, the last time I used it to get to the island, it was filled full of bullet holes from some suspicious sources. And I had to duct tape the darn thing to get home. And I haven't actually been able to fly it since because I literally sputtered into the parking lot of my apartment on that thing.
At this point, I'm just happy that you could actually understand what Jimmy is saying. So
I can understand what he's saying now. Okay, before we go any farther with my story, I do want to ask. You just said something about him being crystal clear with a brand new mic. Did I hear you correctly? Yeah. I don't know what you're hearing, but he still kind of sounds a little garbled to me.
Dang it, Jimmy! Do you realize how many letters I get from people saying that you still don't sound great on the air? We've been doing this this is our 4th season, man.
No,
get it together.
He doesn't sound like
Oh, calm down. Okay, just calm down.
Listen, I'm on Jimmy's side a little bit here. Listen, he tried his best. This is a work in progress. It sounds different than how it sounded before. It is not quite the same, so we can call that progress, right? We can call it a step in the right direction. Baby steps. Listen, Jimmy's had a busy couple of months.
Yeah, yes, he has. Yes, he has. And he decided to complicate things because he just brought his girlfriend along for this trip.
Listen, man, you're going on a trip around the world. You're seeing sights, sounds, radioactive monstrosities in their natural habitats. Listen, if I had a girlfriend, I would bring her on this trip too. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that she's not acting in the most stereotypically, feminine way because we're chasing a giant spider today.
Oh no!
Jiju Guai. Jiju Guai. I see. I'm never going to get this thing's name right.
Jiju Guai.
Jiju Guai. The big fat red spider.
I was warned about that, so I'm going to be interested to see if we can actually track him down. I mean, I don't know how involved I'll be with that, but I'd kind of like to be involved. It sounds like fun, but
But anyway, how'd you get here? Unorthodox.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not entirely sure. I know how I got here, but the exact machinations behind it are still a little bit befuddling. So this is where I'm going to rely on you guys because I have no Pteranodon bot, and I actually didn't know how I was going to get to where I needed to go. But I actually got up a couple days before I needed to be where I needed to be. I have to make it to Hong Kong, right? So I open up my door and there's a note that's been it wasn't slid under my door, but it was kind of crinkled. It looked like somebody had tried to slide it but gave up.
You have very little space under your door, do you?
I have no space under my door. If my apartment ever floods, no water is getting into my home, which is great. But yeah, there was a note. I opened it up. I won't linger too long on the details. Basically, it was a bunch of coordinates, so I decided to follow it, and I ultimately came to what I assumed was a lake. It turns out it was a lake, but it actually bled into the ocean eventually, and there was a boat moored there. Mm-hmm. And once I got on the boat, I found another note that said, "Happy travels." Mm-hmm. I don't know what this means. Now, this boat was a little bit weird, and it suddenly started to make sense to me the more I looked at it. Tell me if this sounds familiar. About a medium-sized yacht with a giant papier-mâché red dragon for a masthead, red wings on the back, and a pirate flag with a bonehead on it. Does that ring a bell?
Yep.
Yeah. It was just there. And okay, first of all, yes, it was very suspicious, but listen, I got to get to Hong Kong to be on an episode of the Monster Island Film Vault, right? I'll take my chances. So I sailed the whole way here from North America to Hong Kong in a tiny yacht. And it actually went faster than I thought it was going to. Maybe it was being powered by something crazy, but yeah, I got here on a boat. So nothing as crazy as calling on the Space Giants version of Goldar to save me from drowning or anything like the last time.
This is true.
But still a bit unorthodox, and I'm not sure exactly how this happened. But all I know is I now have the boat from Inframan, and I ain't giving it back.
Yeah. I don't think I would either, although I don't know if Princess Dragon Mom or Elzebub or whatever name you prefer is coming after you for it. And if she did, all you have to do is cut her head off 5 times and you're done.
It's really not that complicated of a process. It just takes a while.
Right.
You know,
but
do you want it done fast or done right?
But speaking of that, you're here. This is our season premiere, our 4th season premiere, and we're starting a new series, Kaiju Lovers, because
every country has a monster they're afraid of in their nation. Every monster has a country, yeah, station they call their home.
Welcome to the Monster Island World Tour. We're going to be looking at kaiju movies from all around the world. We're not Japan, not America. We did America Kaiju last year. And there's still plenty of Japanese movies to talk about, but we're going to be looking at other countries and their kaiju movies. And yes, I can already hear you yelling. It's like, it's super Inframan. There's monsters in it, but the kaiju stuff is only for like 2 minutes, so it doesn't really count. Shut up! I need an excuse to talk about the pure, undiluted madness that is this movie, okay?
Any excuse will do to talk about what I would argue is one of the greatest films ever made.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah.
Oh, even Jimmy is a little taken aback there.
I defy anyone with good taste in cinema to get through this movie and then look me in the eye and tell me it's not one of the most amazing things they have ever seen in their entire life.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because you're in good company with that, because I quote from the booklet that comes with the now unfortunately out of print DVD of this movie from Mr. August Ragone and his friend Damon Foster. They wrote, and I quote, "Only an idiot wouldn't like the cavalcade of psychotic violence known as the Super Inframan."
Wow.
And apparently Roger Ebert, the famous Roger Ebert, would agree, because even he likes it. In fact, this is one of the only movies I could think of where he upgraded his score later on.
Listen, Ebert sometimes knew what he was talking about.
Yes, because when he first saw it, he gave it a 2.5 out of 4, but he did like it. But then when Quentin Tarantino released Mighty Peking Man, oh, that might be foreshadowing for later on.
Let me know if you want me back for that one.
Release it on DVD, and he realized he gave that one 3 out of 4. He said, I can't in good conscience not upgrade the score for Inframan, so that became a 3 out of 4. So
heck yeah.
So score 1 for Tokusatsu. Oh, shut up, Elijah. I know you're yelling. It's like, it's from Hong Kong. It's not Tokusatsu. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of Japanese people who worked on this and I know this because I talked about this on Henshin Men, and I had to justify having it on there because, like, this is about Japanese superheroes. It is highly influenced by Kamen Rider and Ultraman and had Japanese crew members on it.
Oh,
it counts.
Yeah. This is, listen, if there was such a thing, and I would say that this film clearly illustrates that there is such a thing, as taking the basic, boiled down to its constituent parts idea, a concept of the Japanese henshin hero. This movie is basically like if you took that concept and all of its broad strokes and you threw it in a blender with a 9-year-old with ADHD, and then you sprinkled a little bit of speed on top of it. the ending result potpourri would be of this film, and it is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And because what else are you going to talk about with this? Because it is just pure undiluted madness. Because this was made by the Shaw Brothers in the 1970s. We're going to be talking about, for our Toku topic today, martial arts cinema, which is actually more interesting than you think.
Oh, it's a super interesting topic.
Very, very much. But now, Danny, we need to get to the entertaining info dump written by my intrepid producer over there, probably with assistance from his new girlfriend. I'm sure, because she's got expertise that no one else does. I'm leaving it at that. But anyway, we'll be reading that, and then we'll be coming back to discuss. I don't even think I would call it a movie. It's an experience.
It is both a movie and an experience and a lot of other things that we will talk about when we get there.
The heroic and highly competent Lema is the secret identity of Inframan, a colorful two-thunder-fisted superhero battling the evil Inner Earth Kingdom and its army of monsters. He stops at nothing to foil the villain's plans to take over the world.
Of course!
And human genocide. Inner Earth employs several obedient and deadly ice monsters as henchmen and generals, including Fire Dragon, an aggressive fire-breathing kaijin with a horned helmet, the vicious Spider Monster, a spider monster who spits acid and exploding web bombs, Plant Monster, a nasty kaijin who invades the science headquarters with its violent vines. The cunning Mutant Drill is a mole-like monster with a shovel and drill for hands who spearheads several of Inner Earth's attacks. Long-haired monster is a frightening creature who fights Inframan by a lake. The cold iron armor monsters are a pair of robots guarding the inner sanctum of the villain's dragon-like fortress. The skeleton ghosts are Inner Earth's loyal foot soldiers. Professor Liu Yingdi is the intelligent and fatherly proprietor of Science Headquarters and creator of Inframan. He mentors Lema as he learns his new powers, and the professor protects his daughter after he and she are kidnapped by Inner Earth. Said daughter is the kind and compassionate Liu Mei, who finds herself in the middle of several of Inframan's fights and is later captured with her father and used as a bargaining chip in Inner Earth's schemes. The awkward and malleable Zhu Ming is a Science HQ officer who is mesmerized by Inner Earth and used as a spy to acquire Inframan's blueprints. Demon Princess Elzebub is the tyrannical and ruthless leader of Inner Earth who is hell-bent on taking over the world.
Of course!
Her second-in-command, the loyal and cruel Witch Eye, uses technology to carry out the princess's orders and accomplish her goals with often deadly efficiency. The human and kaiju plotlines are unified aside from a short-lived subplot involving Mei and the professor's backstory that provides a brief respite from the madness. Otherwise, the protagonist's actions are connected to Inner Earth and its monsters. Inner Earth and its kaijin minions are the problem. Plant Monster invades Science HQ and several officers fruitlessly battle his vines until Inframan intervenes, killing the kaijin. Inframan fights Spider Monster and Long-Haired Monster with his Science HQ comrades. Long-Haired Monster is killed after being thrown into a lake, but Spider Monster inexplicably grows to giant size. Inframan does the same to combat him, eventually squishing the red monster after the creature shrinks. Mutant Drill attempts to plant a bomb under the Science HQ, but this is foiled by Inframan. Zhu Ming successfully infiltrates Science HQ, allowing Mutant Drill to kidnap Mei and steal Inframan's blueprints. Inframan and several officers assault Mount Devil, killing Mutant Drill, Fire Dragon, Witch Eye, the Iron Armor monsters, and numerous skeleton ghosts. The problem is solved when Inframan confronts Elzebub, who transforms into a winged lizard, and he decapitates her 5 times. The script by Ni Kuang is a simple but hyper-kinetic action-adventure story with multiple villains and an ensemble of supporting characters around the central hero. Subplots are minimal. Several artists from Akisu Productions assisted the Shaw Brothers technicians with the special effects, which is why the suits for Inframan and the monsters are similar to those of contemporary Japanese superhero TV shows like Kamen Rider and Mirror Man. Sequences like Plant Monster's attack on the Science HQ were ambitious and employed camera tricks like reverse photography to pull off. The numerous fight scenes showcase Shaw's trademark elaborately choreographed martial arts combat and the craftsmanship of the suits. Other tokusatsu techniques used included miniatures, optical effects, puppetry, and pyrotechnics. This gave the movie a colorful and stylized look, even if it wasn't always quote-unquote convincing. The movie has a light tone with just enough gravity to take the villain seriously as a threat. With its pulpy concepts, outrageous characters, and nonstop action, this is a fantasy movie with some sci-fi elements. Super Inframan was touted as, quote, China's first superhero, end quote, so it was experimental in its time and place. While Shaw Brothers was known for its martial arts cinema, it had never made anything like this. Japanese henshin heroes were popular in Hong Kong, so combining that with martial arts made for a unique blend of styles at the time. To that end, the movie reinforces the styles of Shaw Brothers martial arts films and Japanese superhero television shows. Even its hyperkinetic pacing and psychotropic colors harken back to those influences. The movie was made to cash in on the henshin boom in Japan, which had spilled over into Hong Kong. As such, it was meant to entertain children, henshin hero fans, and fans of martial arts cinema. Box office and budget numbers are unavailable, but it underperformed in its native Hong Kong when released August 1975. However, it fared better in other territories, particularly in America, where it was exhibited by exploitation distributor Joseph Brenner when released internationally. So much so, Shaw Brothers considered making a sequel titled Infrawoman that would have starred an American actress. It even received some favorable reviews from critics, including Roger Ebert. It remains a cult classic revered by fans of strange cinema, martial arts films, and tokusatsu fans. When the movie was released on VHS by Prism Entertainment and Good Times Entertainment in 1985, the Good Times tape included a new section between the title card and American credits that included the subtitle, quote, Battles the Sci-Fi Monsters, end quote, to appeal to fans of that genre. Snippets from the film were used to inaccurately introduce some, but not all, of the villains. Only a few forces are at play in this crazy movie. Inner Earth's power-mad lust for conquest clashes with humanity's right to exist. Zhu Ming's free will is erased by Witch Eye's technology, weaponizing him against Science HQ. May's desire for independence conflicts briefly with her father's care for her. That's about it. A few themes are present. Mind control is demonized. Inner Earth is unabashedly evil, giving the audience clear-cut heroes and villains. The professor will stop at nothing to protect his daughter. Lema heroically volunteers to become Inframan with little hesitation. He and his Science HQ comrades valiantly battle Inner Earth. With my contractual obligations fulfilled, let's launch Season 4 with a discussion of the purest, most undiluted insanity ever recorded on film. Where do we even start? It's super freaking Inframan. Where do we even start?
Okay, well,
Could we talk about how DC Comics should have sued the Shaw Brothers? Because how the heck did they get away with that logo on this poster?
I don't know how they got away with the original Chinese name of the film.
Yeah, Chinese Superman. Yeah,
Superman.
Good grief, this thing has so many titles.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that has about a bajillion different variations of on the title. When it was initially released in China or in Hong Kong, as you just said, it was called Chinese Superman, which is why if you watch the subtitled Cantonese version, you will see in the subtitles the characters calling Inframan Chinese Inframan. It's like a weird, because they're saying Chinese Superman. It's a weird combination of the two in the subtitles that doesn't really make sense unless you get the context, but it's also called the Super Inframan, or just Super Inframan, or just Inframan, one word, or Inframan, infra-capital-M man. Yeah. Sometimes the hyphen version sneaks into the other versions.
And what makes the whole Chinese Inframan thing even funnier is Chris Cook and I on Henshin Men made jokes about this. They're like, wait a minute, does that mean there are other Inframen in other countries? Does every country have an Inframan? Is there like an American Inframan?
Has an Inframan.
There you go. It was like, is there Russian Inframan? Is Soviet Inframan?
Now they've got an Aussie Inframan as well. They've got the Russian Inframan.
He fights all the mutant dingoes.
My friend, they also have a French Inframan as well. The French Inframan. Yeah. Then they got sort of like a southern sort of Inframan. He's pretty cool.
Although that's still nothing compared to, I don't remember what the title was, but the German and Turkish ad campaigns for this made some even more outrageous claims. They said this movie was based on a Jules Verne novel.
Which, if you, okay, no, it's not. But listen, this was during, if you go back in time and look at a lot of underground movies, of which there's very little ties to it here, but anytime you get a movie that's like, well, our villains come from up under the ground and there's an underground cave element, somebody will try to pull a Verne card. One of my favorite examples is the not a lot of people know about this movie, but if you're into cheesy 80s action films, canon films, or if you're a Mystery Science Theater fan, this will not be the last time Mystery Science Theater is evoked in this episode.
Nope.
Then you will be aware of the film Alien from LA, which is a bizarre little flick from director Albert Pyun, who actually just passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
He directed a schlocky Captain America movie.
He did. That's probably what he's most famous for. But he also did this movie about the daughter of an archaeologist trying to find her father, and she falls into an underground civilization that's basically grungy Mad Max Atlantis. And they claimed that it was based on Journey to the Center of the Earth. And the only real ties are that it's underground, and the name of the character is Sakmasin, which is the name of the character from Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's it. So that's that's the only thing I can think with this, is that they don't even really talk about it, but the villains in this film are apparently part of like the Glacier Empire, and they come from underground.
They can't make up their minds what these things are. By the way, the Turkish title, when translated, is Bionic Man versus the Monsters.
Listen, which makes this...
And it had an old key comics character named Dr. Solar Man of the Atom for its poster. So they couldn't even use the real poster.
But Daikaiju Connections, that puts it in the same camp as Godzilla versus the Bionic Monster, as something that was trying to tie into the $6 million man at the time.
Because the US distributor used the tagline, "The Man Beyond Bionics."
Yep, Man Beyond Bionics. It was because, listen, if you weren't there, it's hard to fully grasp it. But $6 Million Man was a big deal, and so was the Bionic Woman. These were big shows, and so you've got people all across the planet were doing this. And probably the example that's most pertinent to kaiju fans would be versus Mechagodzilla 74 becoming Bionic Monster for about half a second before they switched it to the Cosmic Monster title.
Right. But since we're on the subject of the villains and the many, many monsters that are in this thing,
boy.
Because there's a lot of them. The thing about this movie is, it was, Jimmy already explained it to us, and you and I have hinted at it already. This was very, very heavily influenced by the Henshin boom. The Henshin boom in Japan.
Boom. Which is
in particular, Kamen Rider and Ultraman, which I don't know if it probably wouldn't have had the time to be an influence, but I did look up when Go Ranger, the first Sentai series, started. It started just a few months before this movie was released.
Yeah, and you can definitely Super Inframan / the Super Inframan / Inframan / Infra-Man.
Yeah, and at this point, I think the most recent Ultraman show was Leo. It had just wrapped up.
Leo would have been wrapping up at this time. But
Kamen Rider Stronger was the current writer show at the time.
This show is so Toei. It is so, and there are reasons for that, which we'll get into. But this movie is so unabashedly there's some Super Aya bits in there for sure. But dear God, is this thing just reeks of Toei. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Quite the opposite. I mean it in an endearing way, in a great way. But you can definitely feel a bit of well, not a bit, a lot of Kamen Rider, even a little bit of Kikaida in this.
Yes, I was actually knowing a bit more about Kikaida now. I was looking at this like, yeah, there are some visuals that remind me of Kikaida.
Oh, 100%.
Like, yeah, the Inframan himself is closer to Kamen Rider because he's a cyborg, or as I like to call him, Gifborg, because that's how those effects look. It's like we just use those. It's like, wow, we've gone from this is the latest in special effects technology to making silly cat memes on the internet.
Isn't that always the way? Look at how humanity has evolved. Truly.
It is.
Truly.
But then he's got like moves and poses like Ultraman, powers like Ultraman. Although he was going to have a motorcycle, there was an infracycle.
Yes,
but it broke.
You had one.
Yes, Jimmy, I know you could have fixed it.
Yo, he totally could have fixed it, but like
you were saying you had one job.
You had one job, Rayma, to not break the darn motorcycle. And he does ride a motorcycle at several points in the film, just not in costume. Yeah. So it doesn't quite, in all of the science patrol, the only, like, the group doesn't really have a name. They're just the science headquarters. And they don't really have like a name.
Oh my gosh, their headquarters is straight out of Ultraman, with complete with rainbow disco balls and like Tetris blocks.
The Tetris blocks
appearing on their on a screen in the back. I don't know why they're there.
Some of their equipment looks like it was purchased at a Spencer's Gifts. It's very a lot of plasma balls.
In their defense, the bad guys look like they bought their wardrobe from like Spirit of Halloween.
Oh yeah. So do we want to talk about? Do we want to keep going and talk about the bad guys since we already kind of started?
Let's talk about the bad guys, because they can't agree on where these things are. They keep calling them demons, the villainess, the Proto Rita Repulsa, the Proto Bandora.
She
calls herself
Bandora.
A demon. She refers to her minions as demons, but then there's a random scientist guy who's like, they're part of an underground glacier kingdom, or whatever. I'm like, movie, I know you're insane, but pick a lane.
Pick a lane. And that's the thing, is if the scientist hypothesizes about it in the first 9 minutes of the movie, then you can just assume that that's gospel. That is exactly where they came from.
Right. But the hilarious thing is, nobody can agree on what these characters' names are either. Because the dub renamed some of them hilariously, I might add.
Before we go any farther, this is a good spot to mention how the two different versions of the movie treat things, because I would argue that as insane and just completely bonkers, off the wall and just nuts, just completely nuts, as the original Hong Kong version is, it's also very earnest, and it doesn't treat the movie as like a parody or a joke.
No, it doesn't.
It's very straight. As insane as it is, it treats everything that's happening as straight. Now, the dub knows what it's dealing with and puts some silly stuff in the dub.
Yeah, it does. The way I guess I showed this actually to the Metters one time when they came to visit the island, and I told them, it's like, I'm going to forewarn you, this is competently made insanity.
And it is competently. I completely agree. The set design on this thing is
not
great.
Incompetent. It is competently made.
It's competently made. It is. The sets are beautiful. There are some really interesting.
Fight choreography is good. Performances are decent. The script is unmitigated nonsense, but
the script is bonkers in the extreme.
And I found I think I know why. I actually found some, because I found it. What a lot of people don't know is that they're on these funny little things called DVDs. They will have DVD features, and there was a PDF with an interview of the director, Hua Shan, and he talked about how the script got made. Do you want to hear about that a little bit before we talk about the villains? Because it explains so much. I can infer a lot.
Who am I to stop you? Tell the people what you found.
It's my show, dang it. And
this is true.
Yeah. So he said that the screenwriter was a guy named, I'm probably butchering these names, Ni Kwang. And the director said, quote, there was an interesting way Ni Kwang wrote his scripts. He never edited or revised them.
Wow. That
the director could do whatever they wanted with the script, even change it completely, and he wouldn't care. I think this was because he simply had too many stories to write and just didn't have the time to make changes. End quote.
And that should answer many of your questions right off the bat.
Right. The interviewer also asked him, was like, how did Shaw Brothers go about writing their scripts? And he said, well, there was 3 ways we did it. And then he said, the way we did it for Inframan was this one. And then this is how he explained that. Quote, most of the scripts that got approved by Shaw Brothers production team were text scripts, and directors were not required to present storyboards. Fun fact, this was the first Chinese movie to use storyboards.
Yes, it was.
Most directors simply worked out the shots during filming. Some would even change the script while filming, but Inframan was pretty loyal to the original script. End quote.
This entire movie was draft number 1. Like that is okay. So you and I are both writers, right?
Yes.
So this is when we hear something like this, like that is so wacky. Like that's the nicest thing I can think.
Someone
to say about
filmed the first draft.
Somebody filmed that is listen, like that could be the thesis statement of this film. If this film had a thesis statement, it would be either we did it on take 1 or boom in all caps.
Oh man. Yeah. But yeah, so the bad guys. So the bad guys in this.
Yeah, the bad guys.
Who are I joke that the villainess is the proto Rita Repulsa. I mean, like, I have this crazy theory that they're cousins or something. Or like her, like Rita Repulsa, Bandora, this woman, and Belvera are all like related somehow.
Belvera would literally be their little sister.
Their little sister, yes.
Yeah, yes. There we go. Right. Give me that rim shot. There we go.
Wow.
Like, I'm not proud of it. I
got out of being that deep in with Winter and the Board, and I'm still saying it.
I'm just saying, but yeah, the villain.
I think the official name for her is Demon Princess Elzebub, which is a play off of Beelzebub.
It ain't subtle.
Yeah, which I believe is, well, it's in the Bible. I think it's in the Bible, and the Beelzebub literally means Lord of the Flies. There's a literary reference for it. It's not Jules Verne. It's Lord of the Flies.
There you go. This movie has about as much to do with Lord of the Flies as it does with Verne. So
yeah, but sense. Anyway, but the dub renamed her to
just say
to Princess Dragon Mom.
Princess, listen, okay. People out there, I don't care if you've seen the movie before or if this is the first time you're hearing this. I want you to just stop for a second and let it all sink in. Yeah, the villainess's name is Princess Dragon Mom.
Yeah, but here's a fun little thing I decided to try. This is definitely going to be different than what it was on Henshin Men. I decided, because when I looked up the Wikipedia article of this, it had the Chinese letters there for each of the characters' names. I'm like, I want to see what these actually come out as. I'm a little confused on this one, because according to Google Translate, it's Google Translate, so it's highly suspect. It says the Chinese letters for her name mean Glacier Lord.
Honestly, that's not too far off from how she's presented. I mean, she's kind of the ice princess of a glacial kingdomy sort of vague boom boom explosion tone bra sort of thing going on.
Yes, the costuming.
Listen, this is proto Bandora.
It really is. It really is. But then then we have Witch Eye. Oh my gosh, if you thought Comb Bra was funny enough, Witch Eye's barely wearing anything, and she, with a name like Witch Eye, you think that she's gonna literally be a witch and have supernatural powers. No, she uses science.
Science. You've just been blinded by it. Ha.
Yeah. And she brainwashes people. And when I watch it, I get flashbacks to the Star Trek original series episode Dagger of the Mind, because that's
good
like,
one.
Yeah. So
she,
and then
you know
and like she's like barely wearing anything. Okay, so like you're there for the eye candy. We get it.
Yeah, she doesn't leave a lot to the imagination. The thing I think about most with her is the fact that she's called Witch Eye, but she has 4 eyes. She has 2 eyes. She has 2 eyes on the palm of her hands.
Yeah. Because
Pan's Labyrinth.
Guillermo del Toro saw this movie.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've seen Pan's Labyrinth.
it's the low hanging fruit reference, we know, but
Yeah,
it really does look like the pale man with the eyeballs in his hands. It's very. This movie has a surprising like reach in terms of its cult following. I can almost guarantee you that Del Toro has seen this.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Which is funny because it was a box office flop, as Jimmy told us in the entertaining info dump.
Yeah, it didn't earn a lot of. The good news is they didn't. I mean, it had a pretty. I don't know. Like, I'm not knowledgeable enough about how Chinese and Hong Kong film budgets were at the time to know if this was medium budgeted or higher than usual for a Shaw Brothers film.
Oh, they said it was. They said that it was expensive.
Okay, because that's what I always thought. Because you can tell this was an expensive movie. It looks expensive. Today, if you look at it, it has kind of a cheesy quality to it, but it
right. They said it was expensive. I can't find any actual numbers, but they said it was expensive because they said that's why you don't see very many science fiction films coming out of Hong Kong, because it's too expensive.
Well, that's the thing about the Shaw Brothers, is that they pumped out 1,000 movies and they reused a lot of assets for their kung fu and their martial arts films. And then you've got this film where you can't do that. You have to have a set for the good guys. You have to have an underground dragon mom lair. You have to have the above ground portion, and they do fight in a quarry at one point. They do the quarry thing.
Right, they do the quarry thing. And although they do recycle a couple of music cues.
Oh my gosh, they did. They actually swiped a little bit of TofuFury music from Ultra 7.
Ultra 7 and Mirror Man.
Yeah, there are a couple of Mirror Man cues and sound effects. It does not take a rocket scientist.
They use the Ultraman Henshin sound
when he gets big.
Juju Guai, the monster we're trying to track down, and Inframan, because he randomly gets huge.
And at a couple of points in the movie, specifically, I'm thinking during the birth of Inframan moment when he's activated for the first time, you can hear the Exilian UFO from Monster Zero.
Yes.
And it's that sound. Like, it's not subtle. Now, that's it. Kind of like that. I don't know if it was if that had anything to do with the fact that there were Japanese technicians and actual companies that were involved with the film.
Right.
There were a couple people that came over, some special effects guys. Most notably, the monster suits were built by Equus Productions, who worked with Tsuburaya and specifically with Toei.
Oh, okay. If you're going to go there for a second, I'll get back to the bad guys' names here in a minute. But, if you're going to talk about that, so it's Mikami.
There you go. Thank you. I could not remember his name.
Yeah, it's Michio Mikami, who worked on Kamen Rider. He was born in China, but raised in Japan. Couldn't speak Chinese well, but he could write it really well. So they needed an interpreter to talk with him, where they just had him write stuff. And he worked with Eiji Tsuburaya on the original Godzilla, Rodan, and the Mysterians. Yes, we know you love that one. We are riding inside of your Mysterians fandom, okay? Yeah. And he went and worked with Daiei on some Gamera movies, among other things. Then he went independent in 1967 and started Akisu Productions, or X Productions, with Keizo Murase. Let that sink in, people. And Akira Takahashi. And later in life, he was an interior designer.
Well, that's living the dream. Listen, this guy is no joke. I mean, if that resume and all those people attached to it that he worked with was not an indication, this dude was no joke. And he is the guy
he designed the monsters and everything, character designs on Kamen Rider.
Yes, which I guess is a good way to tie us back to talking about the rest of the bad guys.
Yes. Also, just one more. Not only did they borrow the sound effects and the music, they also borrowed footage from Submersion of Japan, like everyone else.
Everyone stole footage from Submersion of Japan.
Yeah,
at that
the
time,
burning
so,
buildings at the beginning, that was from Submersion of Japan. Apparently, they had bought it. So they were using it legally. They bought it, and they're like, "Well, we would do it ourselves, but we need to get the movie finished and save some money." So just
we don't have the budget to build a miniature Hong Kong. And the last time we tried to burn the real Hong Kong down, Hong Kong got mad at us.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that again.
Yeah, but
sorry,
no.
Hong Kong.
So we talked about Witch Eye. She got renamed She Demon in the dub, and then we need to talk about these for a second. The not shocker goons.
oh my gosh, these are so.
They are called skeleton ghosts.
Skeleton ghosts. But
they're called the skeleton ghosts, and these are relevant to us, Danny, because actually I should bring this up. I missed one of the other MST3K connections. Princess Dragon Mom is the inspiration for Kinga.
Yes, she is. She is.
The newer MST3K seasons. I know that sounds weird, but according to Joel Hodgson, it's the inspiration. He wants this movie on the show.
Oh, he's been trying for decades. I mean, ever since the original run of the show to get this movie onto the show.
It is so riffable. This is MST3K gold right here.
It really is. It's one of those movies that works really, really great on its own as a piece of entertainment, but if you throw the gags on it, it would be mwah. And honest to goodness, if they got the crew that's doing Mystery Science Theater currently right now, they've been doing new episodes for their Gizmoplex streaming service. Yeah, for anybody out there who doesn't know.
Which I still need to sign up for.
Yes, you should. But yeah, anybody out there who doesn't know, I'm doing my part in spreading the word here. Mystery Science Theater is not canceled again. A 13th season just ended. They have their own streaming service / kind of theater portal called the Gizmoplex, and season 13 was really funny. I think it was actually funnier than both the Netflix seasons. So I would recommend throwing some money at them and supporting them so that they can make a season 14.
But that's saying something, because I thought especially the first Netflix season was pretty funny.
I agree, but I think they have really honed in. This is way off topic. Well, we can talk about this another time, but this new season that they just did there were some good ones in there, and they did do Gamera versus Jiga.
I did see that one. I did rent that one.
Yes,
I watched that. I watched it on Gamera Day.
Yes, but anyway, the reason we bring this up is because in the two Netflix Mystery Science Theater seasons, which are technically seasons 11 and 12, Kinga, who's the villainess, who, as Nate just mentioned, was inspired.
Kinga Forrester.
Kinga Forrester, daughter of Clayton, granddaughter of Pearl, heir apparent to the Forrester dynasty of movie riffing mad scientists, or movie riffing and posing mad scientists. Mm-hmm. And her goons, she has kind of, they almost could be foot soldiers, but she uses them as the house band to play in and out of fake commercial breaks.
They're the skeleton crew, and they were inspired by these guys, which means they are vicariously inspired by Kamen Rider, because these guys were inspired by the Shocker Goons, who dressed like skeleton luchadors for a while anyway. So there you go. it's Kamen Riders technically, in a very roundabout way, in MST3K. So
we just made a triangle between Kamen Rider, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Super Inframan / the Shaw Brothers. Y'all are welcome.
Yeah, yep, y'all are welcome.
This is the kind of insight you'll get on Monster Island Film.
But funny thing, so Witch Eye, when I ran her Chinese letters through Google Translate, came out as Electric Witch Eye, which is kind of weird.
She does kind of shoot lightning bolts, I guess. Maybe. Kind of. A little bit. I mean, her eyes shoot bolts. It works.
Yeah, but then you start getting to some of their monsters, and it starts getting really straightforward after that. The names, it's just like, we've been talking about Jiju Guai. I mean, I'm sure that sounds really cool and all to anyone who doesn't speak Chinese, but it just literally means spider monster. It's kind of boring. But then again, if you find out anything about a lot of Japanese kaiju names, they suddenly become really boring. What does Gamera mean? It's literally giant turtle, or pretty close to just giant turtle.
Basically, like if you want to appropriate the la or ra sound in Japanese to almost like a suffix for something big like Zilla, it's literally just Turtlezilla.
Yeah, it's Turtlezilla.
You know,
Mothra. It's literally Mothzilla.
It's Mothzilla. We could keep going. It's just
we could.
Shrimpzilla.
So I looked up some of these other monsters, and you know, their names are pretty straightforward. You know, obviously we talked about Spider Monster. We had a Plant Monster, and I'm a little scared that within about 2 minutes we might get a call from Dr. Dorif.
Oh, you said his name. Now he's going to show up.
It's like Beetlejuice.
Well, don't say it too. If you say it 2 more times, we're in trouble. Just keep it to one. Yeah, we should be good. Nothing against Dr. Dorif. Respect the man. You know, very prestigious underground creepy man. Anyway, let's move on before
plant monsters.
He's got a thing on.
Jimmy, why did you say it a second time?
No. Okay, we're moving on. Next monster.
The next monster. But anyway, but then, like I said, I just started taking some of these names and running them through Google Translate. They just came out kind of funny. There's one who in the subtitles is called Mutant Drill. Okay.
Yes.
Because he literally has he looks like he had tools surgically attached to him. He has a drill on one hand and like a scoop on the other. Like he's a walking bulldozer, but he's huge.
He's a very random looking critter. He is
a very random looking one. Yeah, it actually says here. It's just like, yeah, he's supposed to be a mole, and he has a drill and a shovel. Okay, I ran the Japanese characters for his name through Google Translate, and it doesn't come out Mutant Drill. It comes out Pangolin.
Pangolin. Interesting. So that's I would not have. Okay. Wow. Super Inframan is full of mysteries.
Right. Now, it gets wackier from there, because then you have the long-haired monster who I thought for a hot second was Sweetums.
I'm going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill Inframan.
He looks a little like Cousin It after a bad roid bender.
Yeah. He's just long-haired monster. I thought that was Gahara. But
do it.
That was a deep cut reference.
If you got that, you have seen things. you have gone places.
But no, when I ran his name, the Chinese lettering, through Google Translate, it came out not long-haired monster, Rapunzel.
Okay. You had a little too much fun with Google Translate there.
Yeah, I did. And then you had the Iron Armor monsters, or as I called them, like the King Joe cousins.
I was calling them the Mace Bros because they just
the Mace Bros. That works
the Mace
too.
Bros.
That one was pretty straightforward. But here's the weirdest one. It's one of the most straightforward ones. But the Fire Dragon, the most boring name ever. Fire Dragon. Okay. It has a large horned crown and a mustache, and it spits fire. It's about as straightforward as you can get. Okay, it's got a villainous mustache and it can twirl and all that.
It's an evil mustache dragon, you guys. Just
But this is the funniest, weirdest one out of the whole bunch. Google Translate translated these Chinese characters as Charizard. I hope you're happy, Bex.
Dear Google Translate, what, why, how? Sincerely, me. Charizard?
Yeah, that one I don't get. And according to IMDb, the dub version changed all of the monsters' names. Obviously, we've talked about a couple of them already. It changed one of them to Emperor of Doom.
Ooh, I like that.
I believe I'm trying to look at where it corresponds. Fire Dragon was Emperor of Doom. Then we had Giant Beetle Monster for Jiju Guai.
Jiju Guai is better.
Yeah, the Plant Monster became Octopus Mutant. So maybe we don't have to worry about what's his name calling in.
Slippery slope. Just saying.
Yep.
Zip it in it.
Yep. And that there was a one named Drill Arm, and he became Driller Beast. and then Laser Horn Monster and Iron Fist Robots.
Fair enough. That's pretty straightforward.
And Elzebub's dragon form was Flying Dragon Lizard. Oh, you forgot Lord at the end.
Yeah, you forgot to put the word Lord at the end. Almost. Or would
she be Flying Dragon Lizard Lady? Any combination of these words would make
seriously
sense.
At a certain point, you're just kind of throwing words at a character and seeing what sticks. But Dragon Mom is
but then we have just like all the names in this, because we have Mount Devil.
Mount Devil.
We get it. It's evil because that's bad guy HQ. There, you want to talk about metal?
Yes.
The bad guy's entrance is their HQ, Mount Devil, is a dragon skeleton with smoke billowing out of it. That's a metal album cover if I ever saw one.
It's either a metal album cover or a really, really obscure Masters of the Universe playset. One of the two.
There you go. Oh yeah, I forgot. I called Witch Eye the hottest disco space nun harlot.
Oh my gosh, the space nuns.
Yeah, we don't talk about the disco space nuns.
No, and then she honestly, I think she gets it the worst out of everyone. I mean, I know we're jumping ahead, but she just kind of gets her hands chopped off, and then she is thrown into lava. That is such a cruel way to go. I always thought that was like, whoa.
Except if you pay really close attention to the next shot where she's falling in, she's got her hands.
Yeah, she has her hand. The model has the hands. Whoops, not so good there, Shaw Brothers. Might want to check that.
And I swear, I'm just going through a bunch of random stuff, just looking at this. But their headquarters is nuts.
Welcome to this movie. This movie is a bunch of random stuff.
I understand that, but yeah,
we gotta talk about that.
And I forgot, we have an Infra Kenny for one scene.
I guess.
It was the little girl who's like, "Is there an Infra woman?" Sorry, we're not going to make enough money to make a sequel. Because that was going to be the sequel.
There almost was an Infra woman.
There almost was an Infra woman.
But the movie did not perform well enough, and that is such a shame, because imagine if they were still making Inframan movies today. Like they just didn't stop. It's like Sentai. They do a new one every year.
That would be. I don't know if they could keep this momentum going.
No. Because the thing about this movie is that it does have some downtime moments where the characters are talking and there's a little bit of development and the bad guys are scheming, but it feels like every 5 minutes there's an action set piece in this thing, and it's just boom, it's just explosions and jumping and kicking and sound effects, and the monsters making weird constipated sounds while they're jumping around and being They sound a little bit like Ted Cassidy as the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla. That's what they sound like. They sound like they sound like they're in pain. Poor guys, but they're literally, it's just all over the place. Things are exploding. Things are, it's just craziness, and they're kicking sounds, and Inframan's bouncing around.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot. Our friend John LeMay had a chapter dedicated to this, so I just need an excuse to cite John in every episode.
Every episode.
So I think I will add him to my list of sources. And just so I can solidify that, according to John, he said the Shaw Brothers used a hot air balloon to promote this movie in China. And I hope they shot it down.
Oh, keeping it topical. There it is. Actually, this was that's another first for this film. Promotion via hot air balloon in Hong Kong. That's another first, along with there were a couple of other things. The storyboard one is a big one. I think there was one other,
and it was China's first superhero movie.
There you go. So,
sorry, there was not a super. I would have loved to have. Can someone please do like some version, like give me a comic book of Infra Woman. I need to see Infra Woman.
Continuation, more of the Infraverse, into the Infraverse.
Yeah. Into the Infraverse. Yeah, there you go.
I want to see.
But apparently, this is how you become an Inframan, or I guess in this case, an Infra Woman. You need good health, courage, and self-sacrifice.
Yes. Which is actually, I always thought that was interesting. The idea that this guy goes in and has this procedure done to him, because it's explained, long before the events of this movie kicked off, the main scientist character has been developing this Inframan tech, and he finally has an opportunity to use it, and he looks right in the eyes of the guy of Rayma, who becomes Inframan, and he says, "This is gonna hurt, Slick. Like, this is not gonna feel good." Like,
yeah, except we never really see him in pain.
You don't see him in like, that's the funny thing, is it's described as being this incredibly painful procedure. Now, we don't see the whole procedure, so you can infer. And when it does the weird kind of superimposition cutaways to show all the metal underneath his skin, you have to imagine that, like, yeah, most of his bones have apparently been replaced with metal. Yeah, that probably hurt. Yeah, we probably skipped a couple of operating scenes of this guy pulling a Katsura on poor Rayma and just inserting clockwork into all of his nooks and crannies, which is not a good mental image. So he probably was in pain. Like, it probably sucked. It probably sucked, but we don't see any of it. He's just kind of sleeping in an interesting T-pose on the table.
We get it, movie.
We get it. It's not subtle. They're like, we're fighting demons. We know what we get it. He's rising again.
It's super Inframan. Subtlety does not exist.
This movie, being frenetic is the name of the game. There is not a subtle ounce.
I mean, Inframan is apparently too cool to walk into the enemy lair. No, he has to backflip into the enemy lair.
Yeah, he's a bouncy boy, man. He's flipping all over the place.
But then he gets captured in a missing scene or something, because as soon as he gets in there, it's like, ha, we've captured you, Inframan. We're like,
yeah, that sequence has always baffled me. I always wondered when I first saw it if there was a scene missing from the version I got, but no, he just kind of backflips in, and the next moment he's hanging from the ceiling. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. But you were saying?
Well, I was just saying, yes.
Pain.
I was just saying that he's. I think I was actually finished with what I was saying.
Okay.
What I'll transition into is we should talk a little bit about how he looks, about the design. There's not a whole lot. There's not a lot to say.
Design is nuts. He's all red and orange. He's a lot of warm colors. He has big old Kamen Rider eyes. But the rest of him, I feel like he has a Green Ranger dragon shield, but he did it first. But then a lot of the other design features look very Ultraman.
Yeah, he's kind of like I said before, he's kind of a perfect intersection. He has kind of an Ultraman-esque physique, and the mouth kind of reminds you of Ultraman a little bit. Not so much the nose, but the mouth. The eyes are straight Kamen Rider. The body proportions are very Kikaider. He has the soft taco Green Ranger thing going on a little bit. And it is the soft taco version.
Yeah, but then like his moves are a weird mix of Ultraman and Kamen Rider. He has the lethal kick. That's the Rider kick. Okay, we get the solar ray,
which is
it's the Specium beam, and apparently it's powered by the sun. So Inframan's kryptonite is a cloudy day.
Oh, it's not subtle. It's again not a lick of subtlety in this thing.
But he does have infravision.
He has infravision. Yes, infravision. And he can, and he flies. And one of my favorite little beats from the film is when he takes off for the first time from the lab, and you see him jump straight up in the lab, and then you just kind of see him flying out of the top of the building. It's like, did he punch through the ceiling?
How crazy would it be if that's how everything was born? Like, as soon as it's born, it's like, boing!
Yeah. It's like every baby animal ever just shoots straight up.
It's like, what did we have? A bouncing baby boy, literally.
A bouncing baby infra boy.
A bouncing baby infra boy.
That's the thing,
we're expanding the infraverse as we speak. Got infra and infra boy.
Yes, the infraverse is experiencing a boom right now. Get it? Because everything blows up in this friggin' movie. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. Okay, so this is something funny I did.
And then there's the firebomb. So it's like those exploding darts, you know.
Yes, the Deus Ex darts at the end that he uses to
the Deus Ex Dartica.
Yeah, Deus Ex Dartica, where he just kind of thaws it. There it is, where he just kind of thaws himself out, which is useful.
Oh yeah, I forgot. His kryptonite is not a cloudy day. That just although if it's the dub, they say he's solar powered, but the dub is silly. But you know, he can't do the solar. He can't do the Specia beam, man. But no, and this is what wrecked my friend Chris Cook when we talked about this at Henshin Men. He could not handle it. He could not handle it. He could not handle that Inframan's weakness was the glacier.
The glacier. They put him in deep freeze.
Which basically means in my home state of Indiana, he's useless for 3 months out of the year.
Imagine if he lived in Minnesota.
Then he's useless for 9 months out of the year.
Yep. Exactly. Any listeners in Minnesota, we feel you. We see you. All right, we see you.
And then if he's from Canada or Alaska, it's 11 months out of the year.
And then he uses the darts and he thaws himself out and he defeats the one thing that could have stopped him. And then he has that great, like that last battle where he sends the Mace brothers bouncing up the stairs and he gets rid of the rest of the boneheads. And then
were they snarky?
They were exceptionally snarky, Nathan. Like just so snarky. And then, okay, I mean, we can't talk about this movie without talking about the single greatest moment, right? The 6 single greatest moments, I should say.
No, it was 5.
Well, it was 5, but she grew a 6th head, and then
she grew a 6th head. Well, 6. Because that is the number of imperfection. That is the devil's number. She has 6 heads.
Whoa!
Oh it's my God! Deep, man. I could write an entire academic essay on this movie now. Suddenly,
you might be able to. If you don't,
definitive analysis of Super Inframan.
Listen, if you don't do it, I will, because I love this movie more than should be reasonable for any sane human being
so yes. Cut her head. She turns into a dragon because, of course, and then Inframan proves the definition of insanity and just keeps doing it over and over, cutting her head off, and it just keeps regrowing, and he keeps doing it.
The first time I saw that scene, oh my gosh, I could not believe it. I believe it was playing at G-Fest. I saw it at G-Fest on the in-house hotel room channel, and it got to that end part. And it's worth noting that the entire ending of this movie, from the minute...
The last 20 minutes is just nonstop action insanity.
It's
on Henshin Men, we have an award called WTH What the Henshin for the craziest moment. I cheated. I said the whole dang movie.
The whole dang movie.
That was the title of the episode, was WTH the movie. Because
that's what it is. That's what it is. But this moment, like the last 20 minutes of this movie, is pure insanity with control. Like there's a moment where one of the boneheads gets thrown into water and the water explodes for no reason when he falls in. It's pure insanity. The things are exploding, and I'll get to that in a sec, but because I did something kind of funny when I was watching it this last time, I'll share. But the craziest moment is when Princess Dragon Mom, I know that's not her real name, but it's funny.
The funnier name.
It's so funny. Is sitting there.
Just to justify citing John even more, he actually makes it slightly funnier in his chapter on this. He calls her Princess Dragon Ma.
Princess Dragon Ma.
Ma. It's Dragon Ma.
It's Dragon Ma. Down south, she Dragon Ma. But I don't know. Ma and Pa, Dragon Ma and Dragon Pa. It's the Beverly Hillbillies version of Super Inframan.
Dragon Ma. She's trying to take over. Wild, of course.
There you go. Inframan Green Acres.
It's a goofy there.
Gorsh. Yeah, there we go. It's Super Inframan. I will do the rest of the episode like that if you don't stop me. I'm feeling a little goofy right now, if you can't tell. This movie I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times I've seen. I have seen this movie probably more times than is healthy for me. I feel like this movie
I think
has,
at this point, I'm afraid that if you watch it again, you'll like turn into like Super Infradan or something ridiculous like that.
Super Infradan.
Yeah.
You know what? That might be worth watching it. Or better yet, I use my DVD copy as like the beta capsule, and I lift it high.
There you go.
I turn into Super Infradan.
That would just be silly, you know.
That would be.
Yeah, Jimmy's with me. Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, no, it doesn't make sense, but I said it out loud, and now I have to kind of live with the fact that I made a very bad joke. Super Infradan. There he goes. Thank you. That's his theme. That is Super Infradan's theme song right there. That's the sound that accompanies. That's the sound. Thrill as he flies away sadly to the tune of a wet trombone. Anyway, so I've seen this movie way more times than is healthy for a normal human brain to consume because I just love it so much. It's wacky. How did you describe
it to our friend Michael?
Like, what did I say?
Like a masterpiece of insanity or something like that.
Something like that. It's like, I don't remember what I said. I'll have to dig up the text when I get my Wi-Fi signal. When I get my cell signal back. I don't have a good cell signal on this thing.
Yeah, I just love the fact that August Ragone and Mr. Foster use words like psychotronic to describe it.
I mean, it works. Here's another word for you: Gonzo. This movie is insane. This movie's insane. It's completely insane.
Yeah.
But okay, so I've seen.
Oh no, here you go. I don't know where they got this, but according to them, this is a way the movie has been described, apparently by the uninitiated or by the snob, the film snobs.
Oh yes.
Yeah. A quote: drug-induced, nonsensical turkey full of McDonald Land-inspired creatures.
McDonald Land. That's actually pretty accurate. Oh no, the Hamburglar versus Inframan.
Super Inframan.
Ronald McDonald was walking along in McDonald Land one day when all of a sudden things started blowing up for no darn reason.
And then a guy in a red helmet with big blue eyes punched him in the face.
And then the big old bug got stepped on and squirted green goo all over his shoes. That was fun.
But he got better. Because we're chasing him right now.
Yeah, apparently that didn't stick. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine now. So anyway, I've seen this movie more times than I should, and the only
oh no, here's the line I was looking for. The film is a delirious psychotronic masterpiece, an out of control garish sci-fi fever dream of electrifying mayhem.
Hey, electric mayhem. How many more Muppets references can we sneak into this episode?
Electrifying.
I know, but it reminded me of electric mayhem, and I had to say it.
I know.
So.
We got Sweetums, we got Electric Mayhem.
I did a bad Gonzo impression. It's all good. So, okay, the reason I mention this is because I actually did something a little bit wacky while I was watching it for the 48,000th time before I hopped on my boat and sailed all the way to Hong Kong. I actually decided to count the explosions.
What?
Now hold on, I didn't count all of them because I didn't want my eyeballs to hemorrhage. But I set myself some ground rules. So I started from the moment that Inframan #backflips into the cave and then gets captured to the end of the movie.
Unnecessary backflips.
And I kid you not, from the moment he flips into the cave to the end of the movie when the island blows up, I counted.
So that's what? 10 minutes?
Yeah, something like that. I counted 59 explosions.
Oh my
Just
word.
In that amount of time. And I didn't count the outside battle. I just counted the cave and then when they left. I counted 59 individual booms. Between bad guys exploding, control panels exploding, laser beams exploding, giant skulls exploding, heads exploding, monsters exploding, Inframan exploding, the air exploding, that one moment where water explodes. Listen, everything at the end of this movie, this might be the most explosive film ever made. Like, this movie might have more booms in it per minute than any boom loving movie I've ever seen in my life. So if you like explosions,
I feel like Michael Bay is freakishly happy, shall we say, over this movie.
I wonder if he's ever seen it. It's probably come to his attention since then, because everybody's like, "Oh, you're Michael Bay, you like explosions, you should watch this." Like, somebody's done that, I'm sure. Come up to him at a press junket and said, "Dude, have you ever seen Super Inframan? It's totally righteous, man. You got to see it."
But 59
explosions. It's out of control. This movie is out of control. But here's the thing about it is it's frenetic, it's bonkers, it's nuts, but it's not chaotic, if that makes any sense. I don't like chaotic movies that are just throwing things at the screen and it's almost like too much for my brain to process. I can't really get behind those where it's just so much that I don't know what's happening. This is well-crafted chaos, if it's chaos at all. This is well-crafted chaos. That's a good way. I think it's a pretty good way to describe this film.
It is a pretty good one. And I wonder if part of that is well, I mean, like when I read the interview with the director, he didn't seem like some ridiculous fella who drinks too much caffeine and takes drugs or something. He seemed like a pretty down-to-earth sort of guy.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the Japanese stuff that was inspiring, I mean, good grief. I mean, Ultraman Leo is insane.
This was the decade of out of control, bonkers, insane. What the heck did I just see? Tokusatsu TV and film.
Right.
This was the
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I the other Japanese connection that I should mention is Nishimoto Tadashi. He was the cinematographer. No, he's the cameraman. But Hua Shan was his second assistant as a second assistant when Mr. Tadashi was a cinematographer. I wanted to make sure I brought that up. It was actually Mr. Tadashi who convinced the Shaw brothers to go from black and white to widescreen color.
Interesting. I did not know that. Oh, that's super cool.
And Mr. Shan was working in the industry starting in 1963, so he was in it for 12 years. And he stayed with Shaw until the early 70s, and he worked in Taiwan for a little while, and then he said that he was surprised they asked him to come back to direct this movie.
Hey, you want to come direct a totally like off the wall bonkers Ultraman ripoff? Come on, come hang out with us. And that's like, I use that word as a joke. I don't consider this film to be a ripoff of anything. It's just part of a genre that was exploding. It wears its influences on its sleeve. Oh boy, does it. But it's not a ripoff. I wouldn't say it's a ripoff. Now, there are elements of it that are like tread into copyright infringement territory. There are writer kicks in this film. There's a Specium Beam pose in this film. It's there, but it's so like it's just part of it. It's just part of the weird and wacky tapestry of 1970s tokusatsu, where anything can happen. It's just completely bonkers, and you go with it because it's it's fascinating, it's entertaining. There's something kind of oddly beautiful about it. You know what I mean? Not that it's like right. The stunning thing, but just the fact that it's, again, what have we always said about tokusatsu? That it invites you into a reality where even the most nuts, crazy things make sense and you can accept that they're happening in front of you, just no matter how crazy that is.
Right.
That's what this film does. And if you like, gosh, I mean, I would go as far as to say that if you're somebody who, like, there are a lot of different things that this intersects with. If you like kaiju, watch it. If you like Ultraman, watch it. If you like Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider for sure. Kakaida, Zaborgar,
martial arts movies,
kung fu movies. If you are into Shaw Brothers, because Shaw Brothers has made so many movies that they're basically a genre unto themselves. It really does. Like, watch it. Like, this is an intersection of all of the things that make Asian fantasy cinema so appealing to people, especially people that might mostly be used to the groundedness of Western storytelling. There's this kind of beautiful acceptance of the bizarre and a beautiful acceptance of the completely unhinged in Asian storytelling, where they lean into the fantasy and they lean into the reality of it over the realism of it. And it's just like anything can happen. And there's something very freeing about that from a visual standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. And I know I'm saying a lot of very quote unquote profound, nonsense right now while talking about the super Inframan. But for real, like, if that's the kind of stuff that appeals to you, then this movie is such a fun time. It is such a fun time.
Right. So that's an almost too perfect way to transition to the Toku topic, but I did want to bring up a couple more quick notes here. Our hero in this, Rama, played by a guy named, well, how funny is this? Danny Lee.
Heck yeah. And we've seen
Danny Lee. That was his stage
name, and we've seen him before.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, yeah. His claims to fame is that he discovered Stephen Chow and Lucy Liu, and he played alongside Chow Yun-fat in John Woo's The Killer.
Yeah, this guy's no joke, but we got to mention his kaiju connection too.
Oh, what's that? Remind me.
He was also the lead in a little movie that the Shaw brothers made called Goliathon, that the world at large would probably know better as the Mighty Peking Man.
Yes, that's true. He's coming. So we're gonna see
him again.
But
so he's
but interestingly, someone asked the director, is like, hey, did he do all his own stunts? He's like, out of suit, yes. If it was the Inframan costume, that wasn't him. That was a stuntman. But whenever the stuntman wearing the suits got tired, he would volunteer to do it.
And since we're on the topic of casting, I actually had one other cast member that I have to mention. I would be remiss not to mention him while we were talking about this movie, and that is this incredible fun fact. Bruce Lee is in this movie.
Is it Bruce Lee or Bruce Lee?
It's Lee, but it's okay. So you know where I'm going.
We'll talk. That's actually something that we're going to bring up in the Toku topic.
But I'll save it. That was a thing. I'll save it for that then. But
air quotes up to the mic like Luke Cecchinelli. Bruce Lee.
We'll leave that as a cliffhanger till we get to that. But oh boy, I have to talk about him.
The only other thing I was going to bring up is our first truly insane action sequence is when the obviously named plant monster or octopus, whatever, attacks the science headquarters, and I'm like, this is Proto-Biolante, isn't it? It's probably the most impressive special effects in the entire movie.
Oh, the visual effects for that sequence are great. There are a couple moments like when you see the tentacle break through the wall, you can really kind of sense the human hand in there wiggling it around. But the wire work is really impressive. There are some giant practical vines that are like tree trunk sized, like huge, that they actually built. They probably only built half of it for the camera, but it's there and it looks good. And I mean, I can't speak from experience because I've never tried this, but I know from people who've told me and experiences I've read, and just from the fact I have to assume that they know what they're talking about, that fighting with something that's supposed to be muscular but is just something dangling off of strings, a big old lump of lifeless rubber, that is not only hard to do from the perspective of making it look real, but also making it look like it's attacking you. I mean, all those vines that are grabbing people and wrapping around them, and in some cases just kind of slapping them across the room. People get slapped by plants in this movie. Watch it if you haven't. It is a master. People get slapped by plants in this movie, and they go spiraling off into the distance because they got slapped in the face by a plant. It's great. But those plants have no weight. They have no weight. They're just vines on strings. You can see some of the strings in this film as well, the wire work, which never bothered me. It just shows you how it was done. It's not even I don't even notice it.
Yeah, but like I said, it's pretty nuts.
It's a great sequence. It's a great sequence.
It really is. No, Jimmy, you said it a third time.
Okay, we better move on before something weird happens.
And he's already calling.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Tell him he gets 3 minutes.
Hello, Mr. March, and you rang.
No, but apparently you're like Beetlejuice. As soon as we say your name 3 times, you just have to call in. But if you must know, we were just talking about the octopus plant mutant monster thing in Super Inframan. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, yes, I can't say as I've ever been lucky enough to meet the man. It seems he fell into something of a troubling spot, a most deplorable situation back in the mid-1970s. It seems that some spandex-clad loser rode in on a motorcycle and did him in. Why did he do that, I wonder? Who could have a dream of hurting a beautiful plant monster? All it was doing was defending itself. Why? Why?
I mean, I don't know. It looked, judging by this movie, it had been sent by Princess Dragon Mom to do all kinds of murder.
Princess Dragon Mom, you say? Oh my, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I haven't corresponded with her since my college days. Do you happen to know how she's doing these days?
Oh, I mean, she, I don't know, lost her head a few times.
Oh, well, we've all been there a few times, haven't we? I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can relate. Have you ever lost your head, Mr. Marchan?
Not literally as of yet, but I have been known to lose my mind on occasion.
Well, I already knew that. I made a funny.
Yes, you did. So, have you? I don't know. Do you have any samples or whatnot of this infamous plant monster? I mean, I was just talking with Danny, and who's sitting there just looking absolutely terrified right now. He doesn't quite know what to do with himself.
I am terrified and don't know what to do with myself. I will fully agree to that.
Yes. So, do you have any samples or anything of this infamous plant monster that the Spandex Man hurt so badly, as you put it?
Well, I was able to procure a sample a few years ago. It was sent to me in an unmarked package, and, well, I wasn't quite sure what it was when I opened it. Sometimes plants do tend to mold together in your mind, and sometimes they do seem a bit similar, but a little bit of studying, and I was able to detect a bit of strata locked inside of its cells. Strata, dirt, you see, dirt, ancient dirt from the glacial ages, the Ice Age, and I was able to prove that it was millions of years old and that it was sentient. And so I did the only normal thing that a man in my position, a monster/kaiju botanist, could do. I asked it its name politely. And do you know what it did?
Oh, too bad. We're out of time, so we're never going to find out its name. You can save that for the next time you come on. Bye, Mr. Dorif. I'm sorry about that, Danny.
Wow. Yeah, that was... Okay. Hang on. I need to... Hang on. I got to grab something to... Mind if I take a drink real quick? That was a little weird.
Yeah, no, you go ahead and do that. Yeah,
oh, man.
Those are some, better. That's some special like Monster Island water. I'm sure it's been purified by like kaiju fire.
Tastes good. Tastes good. That was actually some good water. Okay, well, you had to go. And...
Jimmy, we're gonna have a talk after today's broadcast.
How in the world did he even call in? He's still on the island. Unless
we have this, if you looked at the technology in this robot, we have amazing phone technology.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that, but a horrifying thought just occurred to me. Jimmy, do we know, and I mean know for a fact, that you two are the only people on this robot?
His girlfriend is here too. She's just taking a nap in the next room.
That's fair.
She naps a lot.
Fair. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm still kind of stuck in covert mode where nobody's supposed to know that she exists. So I try to. I'm still in.
Thankfully,
we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Thankfully that all got resolved within the last month or so. So we're good. Apparently he gave her a name now.
Oh,
she has a name.
Really interesting. Jimmy, what's her name? Oh, that's actually appropriate and very sweet, Jimmy. I like that name a lot.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, Kaguya.
What a beautiful name, and very appropriate. Very appropriate.
Yeah, very appropriate. But anyway, we have a Toku topic to get to. I'm the kaiju guy now thanks to the Monster Island Film Vault, but before that I was the superhero guy. I wonder if there's a way I could combine those.
Hey, Nathan.
Travis from Kaiju Weekly?
Yeah, I'm here because I need a co-host for a new Toku Heroes podcast.
Oh? What's it called?
Henshin!
Standing by. Complete.
That's right, heroes. We are the Henshin Men, a tokusatsu superheroes appreciation podcast.
Join us as we watch several episodes of a TV series from the wide world of Henshin heroes and discuss their merits and cultural significance.
Starting with one of my all-time favorites, the original Kamen Rider from 1971.
We'll give out awards for things like the best action scenes and crazy what the Henshin moments.
So hear us every Monday in your favorite podcatcher to get your weekly Rider kicks.
Gotta go, because we only have a minute to Henshin it. So, while that lovely podcast ad was playing, you and I were losing our dang minds, making jokes that only the patrons will hear.
This is what happens to your brain on Inframan. This is your brain. This is your brain on Inframan. Any questions? Like, seriously.
Yes.
This is the patrons got a little bit of extra access to our brains melting down after watching this movie.
Yeah, all you need to know is that we casted Super Infra Muppets.
And we did a darn good job of casting it, I think, too. So when we launch the Kickstarter and we try to topple the Disney empire with our blatant IP infringement, please do support us. Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Yes, quite.
Yes, quite. Anyway. Yes, quite. Anyway, so we're talking about our Toku topic today, which is one that you seem pretty excited about. So we're talking about martial arts cinema. So it's like a little history. I'm not going to go into so much the elements of the genre or anything, because that is a whole podcast unto itself, if not a series of podcasts. But I'm going to be going over a brief history of it. And it goes farther back and is more interesting than you think.
Ooh, how presumptive of you to think I don't think that already. I'm kidding. Go.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the Kaiju Lovers.
I know you were talking to the Kaiju Lovers. Okay, go ahead.
Not everything is about you, Danny.
Trust me, I know. I'm under no illusions of that.
Right. But anyway, so we'll start off with with the Chinese term for this. Have you ever heard the word wuxia?
Wuxia. I have heard that word.
You have heard that. Okay.
Word.
Now, looking over my sources, I found several different translations of this. One said that Wu, W-U, if you spell it out with English letters, means martial arts, and Xia, X-I-A, means is basically chivalry, conveys chivalry. So you could translate it as chivalrous combat, or literally, like the literal translation of this is martial heroes.
Nice. I did not know that.
Yeah. Now, according to this is a real thing that exists, the Grindhouse database, quote, the term Kung Fu films came into general use along with the films of Bruce Lee, that's a name you're going to hear a lot going forward, and was used to refer to unarmed combat films, while wuxia pian, that's a longer version of that term, is Mandarin. Kung Fu is from the Cantonese vernacular. The Kung Fu film is thus unique in Hong Kong cinema. With the term itself in the local dialect, the genre was named as the territory's very own. End quote.
Yes, quite.
Yes, quite. And, there are different subgenres and everything related to this. Arguably, there are some in other countries like Japan. Like you could say that Jidaigeki or samurai films, chanbara, as they would call it, could be included with this. So it's actually a bit broader than people think it is. Kind of like kaiju. Eat it, Elijah.
Elijah. You're fine. He's fine. He's fine.
I hope your ears are burning.
There are probably a couple of other things that are burning too. A couple internal organs, a few teeth. He's a hunk of burning rage.
Well, that's what happens when you're the littlest gatekeeper. I'm just saying. Anyway, we love you, Elijah, but we do to death. Anyway, so but here's the thing. This quote unquote genre actually goes all the way back to the mid 1760s with Peking opera.
Peking opera. Do tell.
Yes.
Quite.
So at that time, the Manchu dynasty banned Shaolin. And I remember coming across this in some other research I did. So they banned Shaolin and they burned down the temple. And only 5 monks survived. There's actually been movies made about this, from what I understand. And they trained with whatever they could find. So like farming tools, just anything they could get. So they could fight their oppressors. And then when they fought that battle, only 3 of them survived.
I don't know this story.
And one of these survivors was a gentleman by the name of Master Ji Shan. And he taught his skills to traveling Peking opera actors. He did so that he could make sure that the teachings were preserved, and so he could sow the seeds of rebellion. He was playing a long game. And I do mean a long game because it took 100 years. 100 years, the Peking opera actors did join a rebellion against the Qing dynasty. And then that didn't work out, so guess what happened?
What happened?
They banned opera.
Oh, dear. Okay. Wow. So
they banned opera. So
this is really interesting.
Yeah, they banned opera and they had to perform in secret, and that was in effect for 20 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. But to this day, Peking opera still teaches Shaolin martial arts, and their training is brutal. I saw some interviews with people like Sammo Hung who said that, yeah, they weren't nice.
Yeah, you hear that a lot about a lot of schools and centers for training for this kind of thing, is that they will beat the crap out of you. They will make you earn it.
Yeah. You know, Jimmy, I doubt you went to a school that bad.
And even if he did,
I really do.
He did, he doesn't want to talk about it, right? Like, he's not going to talk about it.
No, he doesn't want to talk about it.
He doesn't want to talk about it.
Unless it's his new girlfriend. He talks about her all the time.
I think he's earned that.
Anyway.
That's fine. That's adorable.
Yeah, he has.
Jimmy, you're
adorable. And I mean, the man had, died once, saving us from the Messiah 13 alien invasion. So I guess he's owed a little bit of happiness, right?
I mean, I would say so. I'd say he's owed a bit of happiness just in general as a good man. But we're not here to talk about Jimmy.
Well, yes, Pollyanny Danny, you would say
I would say that because I'm insulting. What is it like? No, it was positive to the point of being delusional. End quote from my friend Nathan Marchand.
Sir, I have receipts of some of the things you said to me in text messages, although I mostly blame Michael for those, so we're moving on.
Blackmail.
Do you enjoy being under the bus, Michael?
Why, this is like blackmail.
Anyway, but not only opera, but the other thing that was developing along at the same time that would influence martial arts films was the wuxia novels.
Ooh.
And they would be heavily influenced by Taoist mythology and folklore. And they included references to things like people flying. And that developed alongside, like I said, martial arts cinema and influenced it. And in this folklore, unlike a lot of other cultures, humans could attain the powers of the Taoist deities, such as flight, because that's a thing that happened. A lot of people weren't aware of it until Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they could achieve those sorts of godlike abilities through martial study. And you see it a lot in anime too. That's a big thing in anime. You train so hard that you attain greater and greater power.
Yeah, you learn, and they don't often call it that, especially not in like English versions, because you watch a lot of those things, and they're trying to summon their ki or chi power, and they're using Taoist principles.
Yeah, we just talked about that on the
we
power
did.
trip.
I don't think we talked about Taoism that much on that episode, but we definitely talked about ki/chi a lot on that episode, and it's kind of relevant here too.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we talked about it a lot, but it was fascinating.
Yes, we did. Yes, it was.
Yes, quite.
So, but and also that's why a lot of martial arts films are literary adaptations, So like the big classics, the sources I looked at mentioned several. The one that most people would know would be Journey to the West.
I mean, that's the big one.
And there have been a lot of quote unquote wuxia adaptations of Journey to the West.
There have been a lot of adaptations of it just in general, just all over.
I know,
everywhere.
We're zeroing in.
We're zeroing in. But like all I'm saying is like people, you like even if you don't know it by that name, you know that story. You know it. You know that story.
Right. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, you know it. Anyway.
For sure.
Looking at you, drifters. But anyway, so when movies started in China in the early 1900s, the Peking opera became less male-dominated because acting was frowned upon.
Ooh.
That is a job that's too low for you. So that's when a lot of women started doing it. And then women started getting into a lot, believe it or not, into the early martial arts films. And they would play men. It was like the opposite of Shakespearean acting, back when if you were a contemporary with Shakespeare in one of his plays, they would have men play women. It was the opposite because acting was looked at as like one of the lowest jobs that you could do.
Which is such nonsense.
I know it is.
It goes without saying.
It's so weird to think that it's two different cultures at two different times with two very different perspectives.
Two very different perspectives, but both of them coming down awfully on women. If you think about it, two different ways of approaching
it. I know,
it.
Right?
Like I don't know.
Right. So at this point, early on, the most accomplished martial arts actress was, again, I apologize for screwing up these names, in case I do, was Shin Sae-young. She formed her own film company in the 1930s and produced movies that she starred in. And she has a very famous grandson. You know who her grandson is?
I do not.
Sammo Hung.
Okay, then. Wow, okay. That's a connection I never made.
Yep. So the first quote-unquote martial arts film was something from 1928. It was called The Burning of the Red Lotus Temple. And it established the tradition of strong story and notable action. And here's the thing. One of my sources is how it phrased it. Said it was so popular, it spawned 27 movies. Another source made more sense of that. It was a serial.
Oh, okay. 27.
It was a 27-part serial, but apparently that means it was 27 hours long.
Each part of the serial was television. An hour. Each part of the serial was an hour long.
Apparently.
That's nuts. That was pretty, I mean, that's crazy because American serials from the 30s and 40s were 20 or 30 minutes. They weren't that long.
Right. But unfortunately, we'll never know for sure because they've all been lost.
I was about to say, do they still exist? Gosh darn it. I mean, a lot of stuff from Asia from that long ago just doesn't exist anymore. What a shame.
Yeah. However, encyclopedia.com actually argues that there was another movie made the year before called Romance of the West Chamber that it says is arguably the start of it. But, Burning of the Red Lotus Temple was what really solidified it, I'm guessing. So it's like, this is the predecessor, and that's the real thing. It's I don't know, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Godzilla.
There you go.
Maybe.
That's too bad.
I don't know.
Who knows? But it's too bad you can't watch it because I would love to sit and watch that. That's right. That's such a shame.
Now, it did say that Romance of the West Chamber was considered more sophisticated entertainment because it had some elaborate special effects and opera-style fight choreography. You're going to notice that a lot going forward. The reason why martial arts films are the way they are is because of the opera influence. Because opera is larger than life by definition.
It definitely explains the theatricality of it, which is also something in Japanese culture. A lot of no theater and a lot of kabuki theater got into basically permutated into how their films work and especially how tokusatsu works. So it's interesting that was happening parallel. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. Now, when talkies came, some things never change. I don't care if we're in Hong Kong. I will say it. The government mandated that all films be made in Mandarin, the predominant language in China. So many Cantonese-speaking filmmakers fled to Hong Kong. because it was still a British colony at the time.
That's right.
But film production, like many things, stopped during World War II.
As you do.
Yeah. Then the genre was saved by a man named Wong Fei Hung. You ever heard of Wong Fei Hung?
I can't say as I have. I might have heard of what he did, but I can't place the name.
Well, here's the thing. He's a historic figure, died in 1927. He was a martial artist, a doctor, and I forget, there was another thing that was attached to him, but he's a doctor, martial artist, Cantonese hero. Yeah, so he's a semi-mythic figure. He was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
But they started making movies about him after that. They made 90 of them.
So what's interesting is that actually, oddly enough, and here's another parallel, reminds me of the Japanese figure of Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Japanese swordsman who, again, was a real person. He was a real guy. And his story, his life story, was adapted into some early samurai films, some early jidaigeki films in Japan. And then it's that story has been told in books and in manga, and it's been romanticized, and it's been told short form. It's been serialized long form. It's just one of those things that just continues and continues. And his story is considered a kind of a fundamental part of the formation of jidaigeki as a genre in Japan. So again, interesting parallels. Really interesting.
Right. So he was played by, this is crazy. There were 90 movies and he was played by the same actor.
Wow. Okay.
Kwon Tak-hing.
That is a lot crazier than anything that was done with Musashi, because I'm talking about 90 things over the course of 100 years of pop culture. This was all done. I mean, 90 movies, they had to have been shot one a week. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, he was really popular because he was this idealized hero that was on screen. And the guy who got this started, a director by the name of Wu Peng, he broke tradition and actually hired real martial artists instead of Peking opera actors.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow.
But despite that guy's popularity, that character's popularity, acting was still frowned upon, for men to participate in. So women continued to be popular in martial arts cinema at the time, playing men in the 1950s.
All the way up into the 50s. That is craziness.
Yep.
Wow.
And then when you get to, you get to the late 60s, well, just the 60s, I would say, two important studios got popular. One was the Cathay Company. I have no idea who they are. Take a wild guess who the other one is.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway, that was not funny. That wasn't funny, and I said it anyway. My thank you. You know what? Making my family proud here at the Monster Island Film Vault. Shaw Brothers. There you go. All kidding aside, it was
Shaw Brothers. Yep.
Shaw Brothers.
Shaw Brothers. They built a self-contained studio in the 1950s. Oh, I thought it was the 60s. No, the 1950s on Clearwater Bay in Hong Kong. It was practically a city. Everybody lived there. They had everything they needed. The actors, the crew, everybody just lived there.
Yeah, it was basically a complex.
Made their movies.
Yeah.
Basically. And then you had guys who worked there named Raymond Chow and Run Run Shaw, who improved standards for filmmaking during this time. And they were taking note of Japanese filmmakers like Kurosawa. And they started emulating his movies and samurai films.
If you're going to steal from the best. Just saying.
Of course.
Yes.
Now, there were 3 directors, and like I said, these could all be unpacked in much longer podcast episodes, but there were 3 directors at this time with Shaw Brothers who became incredibly influential, but for different reasons. These were King Hu, Chong Che, and Lau Kar Leung. Leung. Okay,
Leung.
sorry.
I believe it's Leung.
Butchering the names. Yeah. Chong Che made action movies, and he emphasized the bonds between men, because one of the more popular facets of martial arts movies was romance, and he's like, nope.
We ain't doing that.
He wasn't interested in that. King Hu, on the other hand, emphasize negative space, like Chinese watercolor paintings. And there's a rhythm and buildup thanks to the Peking opera influence. So if you watch any of his movies, like the clips I was seeing, it would be there's action, and then there's silence and tension. It's building, and then there's action, and then they would keep jumping back, but there's a rhythm to it. And he took influence from Hitchcock with suspense. Is anyone surprised?
I should hope not.
Yeah, and unlike Chang-Che, he emphasized romance.
Yeah, he was into the romance. That was his thing. He didn't shun it.
He was also influenced by Bonnie and Clyde, the movie from 1967 with slow motion.
Interesting. That's an interesting connection.
And the documentary I watched actually showed a clip of one of his movies alongside a clip of Bonnie and Clyde, and it's very apparent that he took influence from there. Now,
interesting.
Leung, this guy's interesting. He can trace his training lineage. He's an actual martial artist. He can trace his training lineage all the way back to Master Ji Shan, one of those survivors that we talked about from the 1760s.
Wow.
Yep. And he strove to have real martial arts on screen. So he would make movies about monks, which bucked against the romance trend in martial arts films. And one of his most well-known and popular movies is The 36 Chambers of Shaolin.
That's one of the big Shaw Brothers movies. People who aren't like Shaw people, like really into Shaw Brothers, still know about that film.
Right.
Yeah,
and he was this director, Mr. Leung, was nicknamed the Dictionary of Kung Fu.
Yes. Because he knew his stuff.
He knew his stuff.
He absolutely knew his stuff. The guy, that's a fascinating film to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And he also did Executioners from Shaolin as well, which is another one of Shaw's more well-known films. I mean, he did a bunch of them, but these are just a handful. You know, we could just keep going. Again, Shaw Brothers made so many films; it's ridiculous.
They did. So, from the Grindhouse database, quote, in addition to their cinematic innovations, King Hu and Chang-Che provided new codes of behavior for their characters. Moving away from Wang Fei Hung's Confucian attitudes, these films tended toward the Buddhist and Taoist, while earlier Wu Shapian presented complex relationships and a careful causality of events. The Mandarin martial arts films emphasize the sword-based combat, romance, and the fantastic, with fights erupting on the slimmest excuse. Quote.
Gotta fight. Any excuse for a fight.
I think we know which camp Super Inframan falls under.
Again, it ain't subtle. Yeah, it's not subtle. Whew, yeah.
It's not. Now, also around this time, the martial arts cinema is starting to spread around the world and into the United States because of the liberalization of the Immigration Act of 1965. Although there was an American film in 1955 called Bad Day at Black Rock that had Spencer Tracy, where he was actually performing some martial arts during a fight scene, but it wasn't a lot. So it's starting to get big in the rest of the world.
Starting to spread.
Yeah, and then this is so funny. You know how you and I have talked about how in 1970 unhappy things happened in Japanese movies? The Japanese film industry crashed.
Yeah, for sure.
It seems like you had a little bit of a similar event in Hong Kong, because in 1970 things started to change. One of those was that Chow left Shaw Brothers and founded Golden Harvest with Leonard Ho.
Yeah, that's a familiar name to anybody who digs their movies. Oh yeah, that's a can of worms.
And the Shaw Brothers the studio did a bunch of downsizing because they thought TV was going to overtake film.
Very common, depending on who you're talking to, either concern/worry or opportunity at the time. Depends on who you were.
Right. So that's some negative things going on, some depressing things going on. But then you had another big thing that happened around this time.
Whatever could that have been?
His name is Bruce Lee.
Never heard of him. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Bruce Lee could be an entire series of podcasts unto himself. I am in no way getting anywhere close to extensive with what I'm talking about here, but as encyclopedia.com put it, quote, Bruce Lee is to martial arts film what Charlie Chaplin is to the silent comedy, what James Dean is to the teen movie, and what John Wayne is to the Western, with something of all of them in his timeless screen persona, end quote.
What a perfect way to sum up Bruce. For real. That's entirely accurate. Wow. That's pretty profound. I mean, again, Bruce Lee is a can of worms, but that's a lot to get into. But yeah, I mean, it's
right.
If you've never seen a kung fu movie, you still know who Bruce Lee is. I guarantee you know who Bruce Lee is.
He's a cultural icon.
Oh, to say the least.
Really, yeah. What makes him unique is that he's actually American. He was born in San Francisco. He's half white. So he had a westernized American attitude, which was very different from the more repressed Chinese attitude at the time. So he really stood out. Yeah. And again, we could get into a bunch of stuff about this. He went to Hollywood. He tried to be successful. He was Kato on the Green Hornet, which is a show. I need to find a place where I can stream the Green Hornet because I need to see this, especially since I know there's a crossover with Batman 66 and Bruce is in it.
Yeah, you know what? Get the DVD. Don't bother streaming it. Just invest in the DVD. It's worth it.
Probably should at this point.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And while you're at it, get the 66 Batman on Blu-ray. Just it looks beautiful.
I should at this point. I should. But besides that, so he did have a little bit of success there. The fact that we had an Asian actor as a regular on a television show at the time on American TV, it's kind of a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
He also, he also did try to get the starring role on the TV show Kung Fu, but lost it to David Carradine.
But what brilliant casting.
He was a little bit upset about that, though.
I cannot blame the man in the least.
I mean, I get it. It's David Carradine, and David Carradine went on to do great work on that show.
Mm-hmm.
But still.
Yeah, the sentence, they turned down Bruce Lee for ... It doesn't matter who comes after the 3 dots. You still turn down Bruce Lee. And I get it. He wasn't a thing at the time. He wasn't a phenomenon.
I think it's a sign of the times, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's still I think a little bit of lingering racism there. I don't know if they necessarily meant it maliciously.
But even if not in that instance,
it is the 60s.
It was the 60s, and as awful as it was a thing.
It was a thing. So at that point, he returned to his adopted country of Hong Kong, and he started making movies. He only made 4. Well, 4.5.
4.5. Yeah, he didn't quite.
He was working on a 5th movie and didn't finish it because he kind of died. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, he kind of died, you guys. He kind of died.
Yeah.
Which actually is kind of
humor.
A thing. We'll get.
Jimmy, it's a humorous understatement.
Come on, man. Come on.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Encyclopedia.com, quote, rejecting the King Hu style of fight choreography and the big budget aesthetics of Chang Cheh's Shaw Brothers epics, Lee brought a down and dirty look and a new fighting style to films. End quote. So he was bucking all the trends.
And it caught on. Yeah, and it caught on like insane. I mean, imagine if the guy had gotten to do more than 4.5 movies. The guy. And you've heard, even if you haven't seen them, you've heard of these movies.
Yeah, The Big Boss, that was his first one, and then The Chinese Connection or Fists of Fury, but then there was also a movie he made called Fists of Fury that had an alternate title. It's a little confusing. It's a little
confusing.
Well, no, I actually know. Yeah, because Big Boss, Fist of Fury, or Chinese Connection, and then Return of the Dragon, which had Chuck Norris in it. He directed that one, too.
Yes.
And the one he didn't finish was called Game of Death, which had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in it, which was kind of funny. That's where the iconic yellow jumpsuit comes from.
Yeah.
And the most insulting thing is they tried to Frankenstein finish that later. Like they took the footage that he made and then made a bunch of other stuff and threw it in there with lookalikes and everything.
Oh yeah, it's kind of the same thing they did with Peter Sellers when he died, and they wanted to keep making Pink Panther movies. They used stock footage and they used deleted scenes from other Pink Panther movies to kind of stitch together an encore performance for a dead man. And they did dedicate the movie to him, like it's in memory of Peter Sellers, but there's something uncanny about that film that's very odd and a little like there's something a little icky about it.
Yeah, I've seen that version too.
Yeah.
And it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But he made one Hollywood movie that was trying to capitalize because martial arts movies were getting very popular in the inner city, especially at grindhouses. And they wanted to they wanted to capitalize on it, and they made Enter the Dragon,
which is so good.
It is an excellent movie. I know there's some of my sources said that they didn't think it was Bruce Lee's best because it's a Hollywood movie that has James Bond stuff in it. Like, I don't care. In terms of actual filmmaking, this is his best movie. All right, get over it.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. Watch it.
Yeah. David Carradine. Remember David Carradine? We were talking about David Carradine a minute ago. He required the entire Kung Fu crew to go see Enter the Dragon. And the producer on the show told him that they were up against the quote-unquote James Bond of martial arts. But David Carradine said, no, we're up against the James Dean of martial arts.
Carradine knew what he was talking about. I mean, give the man his honor.
And Lee was innovative because he was one of the first people to portray martial arts in a contemporary setting. Before this, they were period pieces.
Yeah, they were mostly confined to, quote unquote medieval, feudal style settings with castles and villages and whatnot, and I used medieval loosely. That's obviously not the case, but yeah, they were like you said, they were period pieces.
Right.
But
right.
This is what really like that movie is what made Kung Fu and martial arts contemporary and cool. And like that movie so cool.
It opened his 4 movies opened the whole world up to martial arts cinema.
Yeah, that's an impressive,
basically single-handedly.
It's an impressive feat for one guy in like less than half a dozen movies. That's incredible. That's almost unprecedented. So when we say Bruce Lee is a big deal, then even if you've never seen those films, like trust me, the dude's a big deal. And there are so many other things that came out of that. Cultural understanding came out of that. Just the acceptance of so many different things that just were not a part of the American zeitgeist at the time that suddenly were. And it opened up all of this amazing stuff. And it's just such a shame that he didn't A, live to continue that work, and B, live to see more of the fruits of what he was able to accomplish with his very brief time on Earth.
Yeah, because he died in 1973, just a few weeks before Enter the Dragon opened, at age 32.
It's unbelievable. That is,
it was a brain edema.
It's the dictionary definition of too young. Again, James Dean comparisons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But he was such a big deal, especially in China. We were hinting at this earlier because we have a Bruce Lee, or Bruce Lee. It's L-E.
This is...
Yeah, there was a crazy phenomenon that happened that, oh my gosh. Sometimes Chinese cinema is kind of gross.
We're going to sit here and giggle, but just bear in mind that we're giggling because it's ridiculous. This is incredibly exploitative and awful what they did, but
that's what it's called. It's called Bruceploitation.
Bruceploitation, an entire genre.
After he died in 1973, there were movie producers that decided to basically capitalize on his memory. So they would find people who looked close and who almost looked like him, and then give him a very similar sounding name as a stage name, and they would make movies. Some of which they tried to pass off as sequels to Bruce Lee, the real Bruce Lee's movie. So you had Bruce Lee, L-I. Yeah. That was another one. Bruce Lee, the guy in this movie, was part of that.
Bruce Lee.
Not as much as Mr. L.I. was.
No, Mr. L.I., but I'm telling you what, Bruce Lee, Bruce L.E., has an insane number of these films under his belt. Like, it was basically looking vaguely similar to Bruce Lee, which, by the way, very few of them did. They basically just dressed them similar and gave them the haircut. And then they said, "Hey, you look like Bruce Lee."
It's gross.
It is really gross, but
and it was so blatant.
It's really blatant. But while we're here, I actually have a list of some of the movies that Bruce Lee was in. I'm going to read a couple of these off here, and you will detect some patterns here. Tell me if some of these sound a little familiar. Bruce's Deadly Fingers, 1976. The Big Boss Part 2. What? Like, that's so wrong. Return of Bruce. Like, that's the other thing, is they would put the name Bruce in the title, and some of the, like, there's one of these movies called The Dragon Lives Again. It doesn't have Bruce L.E. in it. It has Bruce L.I. in it, where this guy is playing Bruce Lee, the actor, in the afterlife, and he's fighting Dracula. Like, and Popeye shows up. I can't, it's unhinged. What? No. Okay. This is a can of worms.
I thought Super Inframan was unhinged.
No. Super Inframan is sobriety personified in comparison to The Dragon Lives Again. Look this movie up. It is literally about Bruce Lee in the afterlife, and he's fighting against an evil, I don't remember the whole thing, but he's fighting against this bad guy, and Clint Eastwood is there. And Popeye is there, and then there's Dracula, and he has an army of mummies, and there's like a James Bond guy. It's basically heaven for a bunch of pop culture icons, and they're all like either in another dimension or they're in the afterlife or something, and Bruce Lee is trying to come back to life, and he's trying to beat the bad guy so he can come back to life. And leave.
I mean, I don't know which of these actors was in it, but I also know that they had titles like Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave.
Yeah, Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave. Mr. Lei was also in Bruce and the Shaolin Bronze Men, Way of the Dragon 2, Bruce in the Shaolin Kung and Shaolin Kung Fu 1 and 2, Enter the Game of Death, Return of the Red Tiger. Look for the name Tiger in one of these movies, and that's a dead giveaway. This is my favorite. Re-Enter the Dragon. Re-Enter the Dragon. And probably my favorite of these that I have seen.
I'm looking up maybe we're looking at the same thing. I'm looking up a list here.
Yeah. Probably my favorite of these that I've actually watched, because I have a weird, morbid fascination with Bruceploitation films.
The clones of Bruce Lee, which had Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee, Bruce Lai, L-A-I, and Bruce Tai.
So it's like Spider-Man No Way Home with a bunch of alternate Bruce Lees. Okay. That's awful.
Bruce Lee into the Bruceverse.
We need to workshop that, but we'll get there. My favorite of these is Challenge of the Tiger. If you've never seen Challenge of the Tiger, first of all, I don't even know if I can recommend it, but this movie is so unhinged. It's not as unhinged as Dracula and Popeye, but the movie literally, the only reason I bring this up is the movie ends with the two main characters. The second guy is Bruce Lee, L.E.'s buddy, and he thinks Bruce Lee is gone. Like, he can't find him. And then he shows up at the end of the movie, and he's like, "Yeah, you're alive." And I kid you not, this guy has the gall to look at the camera and say, "Don't worry, I won't die so young." It's awful. It's awful.
I don't know. I just found one that I'm just like, what the frick is even this? From 1982, Jackie and Bruce to the Rescue.
Oh, this is a rabbit hole. Bruceploitation is a rabbit hole. Well,
this one I just found, it's about street gangs and the YMCA.
Gosh, okay. There are cartoon Bruceploitation movies. Like, there are movies where they'll just sneak in random Bruce Lee lookalike characters. It is unending. They made so many of these things. There are probably, for every Bruce Lee movie, and I mean actual Bruce Lee movie, all 5 of them, all 4.5 of them, for every one of those, there's probably 24 Bruceploitation movies. If not more. Like, when I say this is a wormhole, I mean it is a wormhole. It is a rabbit hole. It is all kinds of bad. Like, it is It's fascinating. It's cheesy.
But gross.
A lot of them are like legitimately fun to watch because they're so ridiculous. But it's gross. It's disgusting. Like the fact that they went that far, and they like the fact that they thought they could trick people by exploiting the name and the face of a dead man to generate, basically ride the coattails of a man who'd passed away too young. Oh, this guy was making a bunch of money. Let's just put people in wigs and dress them up like Bruce Lee and have them go, whoa, and like, well, yeah, you can have them do that, but none of them are Bruce Lee. It's not the same. And the fact that they thought they could swindle people, because again, remember, this is pre-internet, right? So not everyone on the planet knows instantly that the minute that Bruce Lee has passed that he's gone. Nowadays, if a celebrity goes, the whole world knows within minutes at the same time. It's on social media. It's on the front page of Variety. It's all over the place. Back then, that information traveled slower, if it traveled anywhere at all. And
especially in China.
So a lot of these studios took advantage of that gray area in a really below the belt way. And it's one of the slimier exploitation genres that came out of the 70s and all the way up into the 80s and a little bit into the 90s. But it's worth mentioning because it's so bizarre, it's so exploitative, and it's just you can't believe some of this stuff. Like, go watch the one with Popeye. Like at least watch that one. It's not good, it's gross, but it's fascinating. Like if you're gonna dip your toe into this and just give yourself an example of it, there are a billion better kung fu movies you could watch than The Dragon Lives Again or any of these things. But I don't know. It's a lot. It's a wormhole.
I don't know if I want that to be movie night.
No, I just watched Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
Just watch the.
Yeah. But anyway, even amidst all of the slimy Bruceploitation, we saw some new stars rise in the martial arts cinema. And they came from martial arts cinema's old friend Peking opera and comedy. And those were Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. Those are two men you could dedicate a whole podcast to as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Jackie Chan in particular, that man's life story, again, can of worms, not opening it here, but look up read his autobiography.
It's crazy. But the funny thing is when he's actually in Enter the Dragon. If you pay close to it, he's one of the stuntmen who gets killed by Bruce.
Yes, he doesn't make it.
They are in frame together for about 3 seconds.
Yes. There's a fun fact.
That's crazy. But early on, and when Jackie was making a name for himself, instead of just being a stuntman, they tried to make him into Bruce Lee. Mm-hmm. They tried to make him the next Bruce Lee, that same sort of an attitude. It just wasn't working. Those movies failed. But when they tapped into his strengths, which were comedy and imagination, he took off.
Oh yeah.
His huge breakthrough, he had a couple of other starring roles that were kind of successful, but his really big breakthrough was Drunken Master in 1981.
1981, the beginning of a whole new period of revitalized interest in this kind of thing.
Right. And when he started making his way over into the United States, his big claim to fame was that he did his own stunts. Now, I put a caveat there, said he did most of it. If you dig a little bit harder, you find out he didn't always get to do all of his own stunts. Maybe if he might have been sick or he was hurt. So sometimes they would use stunt doubles just because they needed to get the movies done. And I think in his American movies, he wasn't allowed to do all of his own stunts at the time because, different regulations.
Yeah, different regulations. There's a whole, the stunt, the relationship between actors and stunts it operates completely differently in Hollywood than it does most other places in the world. But in definitely when you compare it to Hong Kong.
Right. Now, there was a bunch of new talent coming in, a whole new generation of filmmakers and actors and everything coming in at this point. And you had people like, I'm probably going to screw up this name, but Swai, I'm not sure. Hark. He started in 1977. He's been compared to Spielberg and Hitchcock. And he was the first Chinese filmmaker in Hong Kong to make extensive use of special effects in movies. and he made his own studio called Film Workshop 1984, and he's basically done every genre and every filmmaking technique you can think of. Like this guy, if you look at this guy's resume, it goes on for days and it's got everything. And he demanded that his writers have points for their stories. He was very exacting about what he wanted in his movies.
Yes, quite.
Yes, quite. And then another influential filmmaker, he wasn't a director or a writer or anything like that. He was a choreographer. Yuen Wo-ping, excuse me. He grew up in opera, and he was about every 10 years or so, he would find a way to innovate with his choreography and revitalize the genre. Most famously, he did the choreography in The Matrix.
Yes, he did. So if you all that crazy stuff that was going on in The Matrix, that's the guy you have to thank. I remember watching The Matrix. I mean, I watched it not ways after it had actually come out. I mean, I was barely cognizant of it when it came out, but seeing all of those flippy, twisty, spinny moves and thinking, this is so very, very Asian inspired. You know, like where did that come from? And you know, learning later where they got all that from was just so cool. What a great thing to draw from.
Right. And also at this time, 70s, 80s, you're seeing a lot of martial arts movies dubbed into English. Kung Fu, Ninja, Shaw Brothers, Godfrey Ho. They're all pouring into the United States, being broadcast on television and on weekend time slots with, you know, in slots colloquially called things like Kung Fu theater, black belt theater. And the late 80s and the 90s is considered a golden era of wuxia and Hong Kong cinema.
Yeah.
You know? And then you started seeing other talents like John Woo was a popular director with The Killer. And then he came over to the United States and made movies over there. Made movies in the United States and Hollywood, stuff like Mission Impossible 2, all kinds of things. He has a very interesting life story. He lived in poverty till he was 9 and then got rescued out of it by a Christian ministry.
Oh, wow.
And then that allowed him to be able to, feed his obsession with film and all of that. Why do you think he has doves in all of his movies?
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, and apparently he loves The Wizard of Oz.
The man has good taste.
He finds The Wizard of Oz to be inspiring.
I find The Wizard of Oz to be inspiring. It's one of the best movies ever made. I love it.
Yeah, but then you also saw new female talent. People like Angela Mao and Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh.
Who doesn't love Michelle Yeoh? Come on. Michelle Yeoh's awesome.
You can't marry her. You got a girlfriend. Cheating on her already, you cad.
Come on, Jimmy.
Enough lip from you, okay? Just that's enough. That's enough.
You already summoned Dr. Dorif. I don't know if we can trust you now.
No, we can't do that anymore. Yeah. And then period pieces started getting more popular in the 90s because in 1997, Hong Kong was returned to China by the British.
Yes. So
it's the kind of a coping mechanism from what I was looking into. They made these period pieces because it was kind of like, they're being a little nostalgic for simpler times when you had, heroes who made sense to people, It's old fashioned. And here's the thing. The influence of this goes well beyond Hong Kong. It goes into, we could have talked about Sonny Chiba, who some would call the anti-Bruce Lee because he didn't play honorable characters. So you had him in Japan, and then you had Hollywood stars like Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal. I don't think Steven Seagal's that great, though. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee, tragically died making The Crow, Wesley Snipes, Jason Statham. And then in Thailand, you had people like Tony Jaa. I remember when Tony Jaa came on the scene, people were calling him the next Bruce Lee. And he's from Vietnam. And then Indonesia is getting in on this now. You ever heard of a little movie called The Raid?
It's definitely crossed my radar. I've not seen
it. Right. But they all of these people, in some form or another, near as I can tell, owe their livelihood to martial arts cinema, to wuxia. They were the first.
Woohoo.
Nowhere near as cool as when in that documentary when Samuel L. Jackson talked about how that saying that word can be like a calming breath of air or an explosion of power.
Wow. I wish I could expel powerful words like Samuel L. Jackson does, but no, very few can. What's the name of this?
Hold on to your butts, right?
That's right. What's the name of this documentary, by the way? If somebody out there don't want to necessarily name names, say me, perhaps, wanted to watch this.
It's called The Art of Action.
The Art of Action with Samuel L. Jackson. Jackson. Okay. There it is. I can remember that.
All right. Any comments before we go finally wrap things up? Because I'm still a little concerned that, well, not gremlins. I think our mascots may have slipped along with us.
Oh dear,
Jimmy, you might want to check under the hood for Uber Mogra. Just saying.
Yeah, I think before anything else wonky happens, we should move on.
But now, Danny, we got some excitement coming. You haven't done this in a couple of months. Are you ready for this?
Oh, I was born ready.
The Patreon shoutouts.
I shall ask thee once again, will you chant my name?
Eli Harris. Bex from Redeemed Otaku.
Moi.
Damon, make some noise. I'm sure he's never heard that joke before.
No, no, he's never heard that before. The Cel Cast.
Eric Anderson.
Ted Williams.
Wynja the Ninja.
Brad Batman Eddleman.
Christopher Riner.
The Indiscrite One. Not sure how to say that. Covered both bases.
Jake Hambrick. Edwin Gonzalez. Matt Walsh, but not that Matt Walsh. Jonathan Courtright. TofuFury.
Whoa! Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
I've joked for a long time that TofuFury needs to be a Jackie Chan movie where he's a chef. This episode confirms that.
No, it's 100%. If that didn't completely sell you on the idea, then I don't know what will. TofuFury.
TofuFury, starring Jackie Chan as a chef.
Which, by the way,
and then we'll throw in Super Inframan and one of the Bruceploitation stars, just to complete.
Just to be, and then I'll come in driving a Jaeger called TofuFury. Just to, you can't tell me that wouldn't be a good Jaeger name from Pacific Rim. Like that would be a great.
Well, go talk to the Drifters. Apparently they have the right connections to get Jaegers made.
Yeah, apparently they know what they're doing. I guess.
They do. What are you gonna do? Yeah. Throw food? Are you gonna throw food at monsters?
Kung food?
Kung food. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not proud food. I'm sure someone's made that joke. But aren't you proud of yourself?
Making my family proud.
Yeah. So proud.
So proud.
So proud. But now we gotta start hyping. Now we have started season 4. We gotta start hyping those next couple episodes, right?
That's right.
That's right. So guess what? We're back to Godzilla Redux. It's resuming for Son of Godzilla.
Nice.
Yes, we're going to talk about the birth of everyone's favorite kaiju, Minya.
Hey, that movie is amazing. I will not. I will not take any kind of Son of Godzilla slander.
I wasn't making any.
I know. I'm preparing. I'm preparing for it because you just never know.
Well,
I adore that film.
Yeah, well, and here's a little teaser for you, folks, for what to expect in the episode. Son of Godzilla is a date movie.
Yes, it is.
Listen to the episode, and it will make sense. Injecting myself here really quick from the future to let you know that the guest for that episode has been confirmed to be Neil Reeby, kaiju author extraordinaire. Get used to hearing that name a lot this season because he's slated for several episodes. Anyway, back to the season premiere. Anyway, and then we're still in Hong Kong. Because there's not just one kaiju, Hong Kong kaiju we need to find. We need to find two of them. And it's more Shaw Brothers. Mighty Peking Man is our next episode in the world tour. And to make it even sweeter, we will be joined by a gentleman and a scholar, John LeMay.
John, I can't wait to hear what John has to say about Mighty Peking Man. Mighty Peking Man. Okay, so we touched on Bruceploitation, which I have a weird fascination with just because of how bizarre it is. But in terms of legitimate enjoyment, Kongsploitation, weird, especially weird 70s Kongsploitation in the wake of the De Laurentiis film, is something. I love a good King Kong knockoff, and the best. And I'm willing to die on this hairy hill. The best is Mighty Peking Man. I think I hear you, ape. I hear you, King Kung Fu. I hear you, weird Indian 9-hour version of King Kong that was thought lost for a few years. I hear you. But
Queen Kong?
Queen Kong is not amazing. It's fun, but it's ridiculous. But I mean, they're all ridiculous. But no, Mighty Peking Man is great. That's going to be a good listen, and I guess that means it's going to keep you in Hong Kong for a while.
Yeah, at least another month or so.
The Peking Man isn't loose in Hong Kong, is he?
Oh, Goliathon, yeah, he got away too.
He got away. He's alive? I mean, all of these guys really should be dead. Don't know why I'm surprised.
Well, from what I understand, the reports of his death were inconclusive.
Honestly, that makes me feel better because the ending of that film is incredible. I mean, the ending of all of these films, like the gorilla dies in most of them, right? So you kind of expect it, but something about how brutal the ending of Mighty Peking Man was hurt me. So I'm glad he got better. I'm glad he's okay now. Any word on his blonde lady love?
Sadly, she is no longer with us.
Oh, that's a shame. Now that's off topic. We'll hear more about this in the next episode. I don't want to derail us too much, but I'm glad old Goliathon's doing okay.
Yeah, well, he's got like several names, but Goliathon, and I've heard several.
Yeah, if you watch the movie, you hear like 3 different names. So it's
of course.
Fine.
Just pick one.
Just pick one.
Of course. Hello, injecting myself here again to let you know that in between these two main episodes, we will be doing a somewhat impromptu bonus episode thanks to MIFV MAX member Matt Walsh, but not that Matt Walsh, where MIFV will be covering its first Hammer Films picture, which goes in line with our international Monster Island World Tour theme, The Abominable Snowman. Yes, we're hearkening back to the mid-50s and kind of to episode 7 of the podcast where I talked about Half Human, because I'm pretty sure, Jimmy may correct me on this later, that I did talk about that in that episode. Stay tuned for more details. And now, once again, back to the season premiere. All right, and now, Danny, we come to one of the most important segments of the show, shameless self-promotion. You've already done it for me, so I don't have to say anything. So unless I just want to remind people to go listen to Henshin Men, which is wrapping up right now, the current form. Probably be a few more. There'll be a few more episodes there'll be a few more episodes, but that's about it. So
terrible.
But anyway, what do you got?
Me personally, here's what I've got. The usual spiel for the other 48 times I've been on the show, but if the idea
might be my most frequent guest, I think I may have to go back and count.
I might be, and if so, I am honored to be. If the idea of reading the Godzilla films in prose form as novels for free strikes your fancy, if that gives you the warm fuzzies, then definitely head over to the Godzilla Novelization Project, which conveniently enough can be located at GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. There you will
without
find
ads,
which is
without ads.
Now, new and improved with Kung Fu grip and no ads. Batteries not included. But it looks great. It looks so much better than it did with ads. Those ads were terrible. It's been a few years and it still blows my mind how much better it looks. But Yeah, that's where the books are archived. Chapters are published on a serialized basis, chapter by chapter. That's where you'll also find the short stories. There are also blogs there. There are links to all of the other the articles I've written for Kaiju Ramen and other magazines, and interviews that I've done, and podcasts I've been on. I've been on a few, and all kinds of stuff. So you'll hear me on other episodes of this show. You will hear me on Henshin Men in a couple of spots. You will be, I mean, again, I don't know. I'm pretty sure
you are one of 2 people who have completed the Hamilton Marchand podcast hat trick.
This is true. I was on Henshin Men.
You've been on all of them.
I've been on this one, and I was on the Power Trip twice. One of which, a megalithic 5-hour episode on Die Ranger, which was incredibly fun to record, but it did take a year off the end of my life. In the best way possible. But yeah, I've been on a bunch of podcasts. You've probably seen me paneling at G-Fest. I will be paneling at G-Fest again this year. If you
hopefully
with
me.
Oh, I hope so. Gosh,
that's got a good streak. We need to keep it going.
We got to keep that going. You can hear me voice act in a bunch of different things, including the Godzilla Unmade audio drama that came out a few years ago. If you want to really
roast Kaijusaurus, right?
Yeah, the Kaijusaurus podcast. My man Steven Sloss put together these great audio dramas based on unmade Godzilla films, and I got to be the mad mermaid obsessed scientist who digs down to the bottom of the earth in Bride of Godzilla. There is a question mark in the title. So there you go. So that makes sense. I'm all over the place. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm all over the place. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And one thing I definitely, and I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but one thing I kind of want to add to my list of crazy things that I've done from audio. I mean, I've been in audio dramas. I write Godzilla books. I was in Zillafoot. But now that I'm in Hong Kong, I would like to go along on your hunt for the Bugman.
Really? For Zhizhu Guai?
Zhizhu Guai. I mean, I know it might be dangerous, but I'd kind of like to come with on this one. I don't know why. Yeah. I just think it'd be. I mean, if you think I'm going to get in the way, then be honest, and I'll buzz off and get in my dragon boat and leave. But if you want company, I'll stick around. What?
Well, Jimmy, what? You found the bugger? Well, I guess you're tagging along anyway. So we got to wrap things up. We got and make sure we go catch him while the catching is good. Jimmy, play those credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. Our executive producer is Damon Noyes. If you want to be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter and our many colorful characters using the links in the show notes, which are on our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com. Don't forget to join our official Facebook group and Discord server, The Markalite Lounge. Our podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at super_R_illustrations. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack and The Opened Way by Kawatani from Shadow of the Colossus. Additional music includes Every Country Has a Monster, performed by Jonah Ray, and Chant My Name, a cover by Second Archive of the song by Masaki Endo. All film and audio clips belong to the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and/or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can even support us by joining MIFV MAX on Patreon. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Sayonara!